All right, what is up, you heathens and demons, you sinners and saints, you beautiful, blasphemous people? Welcome back to The Rage. I am your boy, the Raging Atheist, and I have some bad news. So, I did get my test results back, and I do indeed have COVID 19. You might already know that if you follow me on Twitter or on my regular Facebook page, not the Raging Atheist page, my regular one. If you're interested in following me on my regular Facebook page, the name is Ronnie Tate the Second. Send me a friend request. I will accept it. It is the Facebook page that I am active on, and you can kind of get um, input on my real life outside of YouTube. So as I said, the test did come back, and I am indeed positive. I am indeed dealing with that news. You know, I've pretty much known since Sunday that I had COVID. As I've said, it feels a lot like the flu, but at the same time, it feels a lot different than the flu. It feels like something I've never really had before, while something that I have had before. COVID is fucked up. I do have a fairly severe case of it, which means that I will be in contact with my doctor twice a week, so they can keep an eye on me, and I have to be aware of my breathing, and if my breathing gets much more complicated than it has been, I'll be going to the ER. I was telling John earlier that I had to have the talk with my daughter about what happens if she wakes up and I don't. That is a very real possibility. Um, and Which I've had that talk with her before after the heart attack. So it wasn't a new talk for her. Um, but it was a very hard talk, and it is something that we are dealing with. I'm not so worried about myself as much as I am for my daughter. Now, I've been told by the doctors she's young, she's healthy, and despite her diabetes, I really shouldn't worry about that. We're trying to keep her as isolated from me as we can in this small apartment. And right now, she is showing no symptoms, and I am hopeful that she won't get it from me. But I have been dealing with negative thoughts, and I'm trying to get over that. I try to stay positive. I will. I will defeat this thing. Mortality rates are fairly low. There is a chance, but at the same time, I feel somewhat good. It is better knowing than not knowing and waiting for the news. So yeah, I have COVID, and I will keep you guys posted. But tonight is about the open mic night. John is here. I'm gonna swing it over to John now. I feel decent right now, but depending on how I feel as we go through this, I might drop out. John has offered, if that happens, that he will finish out the stream. So, yeah, what's up, John?
Hey, Knock, just, pulling for you. I hope everything works out. Sounds like you're doing okay now. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, and yeah, I mean, I feel kind of scared for you, but at the same time, I've talked to you a lot over the last few days, and you sound better than how you feel, so maybe that's a good sign. And then I was very pleased to hear that you're doing like they say about getting up and moving around and doing the deep breathing and all that. And yeah, I mean, it should probably work out. All this is.
Right now, like, the thing that I have to worry about most is because of my vein disease. Blood clots are already an issue if you have COVID-19 and you don't have vein disease. So that's something that I'm going to have to really, I have to keep moving around, keep my legs active. So to try to avoid those blood clots. And I am taking aspirin, and that's supposed to help with the blood clots as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's mainly, I think, what I'm worried about most at this point is some complication from my vein disease. complicating the COVID and it becoming more serious than it already is. But again, I feel fairly confident. I am now 4 days or 3 or 4 days into it. I started getting my symptoms on Sunday. So they're telling me 10 days. Now, some people have complications for months and months and months. Hopefully, I'm not one of those. But they're telling me, after a 10-day period, then I am through the most dangerous part. So I got about 7 days. And then once I'm through that, I should be over the danger.
Yeah, that's good. And then you got to go through the whole thing of staying isolated after the symptoms go away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Folks in the chat, I kind of was laying down on the job here earlier today, and I never did tweet out about the stream or, like last week and the week before, I sent some direct messages to some Christians. I see Keith in the chat. Once we post the link, you're more than welcome to come in. We'd like for you to come in. But if anybody in the chat, has any Christians in DMs, maybe shoot them a message for us and let them know we're open room again tonight. Because we want Christians to come in here and tell us why we're wrong for being atheists, or to talk about anything that they'd like to talk about. Same with our atheist fans. Come on in and bring a topic in. That's what this is all about. For the people that are here now, we instituted something here a week or two ago. If we get a big room, 8, 9, 10 people, what we do is, you want me to do it, Knock?
Yeah, you go for it. I was going to address real quick, actually, Chris's question. Yes, I do wear compression stockings. It has helped a bit, but my disease is very rare. I shouldn't have what I have, so it doesn't help too much. But I do wear them. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're not, obviously you're under medical supervision. I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on the TV or the internet, but definitely should be wearing compression stockings if you're, any vein issues like that, especially with the COVID.
Yeah.
But of course, you've been to the doctor, so that's good. That's one thing I was going to make sure that I came in late to the stream, that you were under doctor's care, and because I take care of my grandfather's 94, so, and he does not wear compression stockings for another reason, but I just took him to the doctor today. I've actually had some kind of bug flu. I thought I might have had COVID, but I don't. Thank the Lord. But
I was hoping. I was hoping.
That's a tough conversation, though, man. I feel for your daughter. I'll be praying for that because my brother passed away, and she was one that found him, and it was. I'm glad you're able to have that talk, just in case. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a rough thing.
Yeah, it was a hard talk. But again, like, she was a bit prepped for it, because when I did have the heart attack, I did sit down at that moment and have that conversation with her. Then, this is something that we're gonna have to worry about. If you see Daddy struggling, call 911. Or if Daddy's not responding and you're trying to wake me up, call 911. Call your mom.
It's just you two in the house.
Yeah, it's just us two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here real quick and finish what I was
saying
before you folks came in, which you two are already familiar with it. So, once we get going, we get a full room. We're instituted a policy that I have the internal private chat up, and you just put the word hand or put a hand emoji in the internal chat, and that'll create an order, that we go to people. And then if we get two people, having a back and forth there, we want to let that develop a bit, so we will let that go. The other thing I want to try is if you would put the word hand in the private chat, or put a hand emoji in the private chat, if you could also, and I haven't really come up with how to do this, like maybe we could just use, the words current or new. Because if, like, say there's a back and forth going on and you have something to add to that specific conversation, if you put hand in the chat and maybe put now or something like that, that you're interested in the topic that's going on now. And if you have something new that you're going to bring up, put new next to it. Then that way I know I can get the people in. We can finish up a topic and move on to the next one. This is a work in progress. It seemed to work out good last time when we were just having a hand up in the private chat, and we're just gonna add little different things to that to see if we can tighten that up and make it for everybody.
Yeah, we're really trying to avoid the problems that we had back in the old Google Hangouts when we had 10 people and people were talking over each other. That's one of the reasons why I brought in moderation to begin with, and that's one of the reasons why the channel ended up changing as it did, was because I brought in that moderation. And we're trying to get away from that. Now, John is always in a moderator role, so anybody that does come in, just kind of listen to John as he is doing the moderating. But I know Leo's here. Leo has a big conversation coming up here soon, honestly.
Well, the thing is me and Aaron will probably be having it will, and I just want to say it will not be streamed live, so you're not going to be able to go to his channel and watch it. But he forgot that the vice presidential debate is tonight, and that starts I think at 8:00. So he said, he's like, I tend to stay up pretty late, so if you're willing, we can just have the discussion later. And I was like, yeah, I'm oftentimes up until after 1 a.m. So we'll be having a discussion tonight most likely, but it'll probably be. I'm figuring the debate will run. They'll probably have it scheduled from 8 to 10 Central. So he said he'll be getting a hold of me sometime within the hour following the debate.
So that's awesome. I'm totally jealous. And I've wanted to have Aaron on for quite a while.
And I can mention
what's the topic, Leo?
We're going to be. I think generally we're going to be talking about physics. With more specifically astrophysics, cosmology, quantum mechanics, and how those subjects relate to idealism versus realism, because he, like me, is very much opposed to this idealistic worldview that, things like that, well, consciousness collapses the wave function, which I actually, in phys.org, which is a very, very reputable secondary science site, they're not a publication or a journal, but they report on that stuff, kind of like what Scientific American or Discover Magazine or Popular Science does. Very, very reputable. And yesterday is when I read the article, they still have it up today, where there was a study demonstrating that no, actually reality is truly independent of the observer. So not to mention that particular interpretation of quantum mechanics is known as the von Neumann-Wigner interpretation, and it is probably one of the least favored interpretations of quantum mechanics out there.
Well, now be careful, Leo. You might trigger Will again. Talking about all this stuff that me and Knock are idiots on.
Yeah, and the funny thing is this was what Will expressed to me, that he was he put a clickbaity title for that stream and was kind of being trolly because he didn't know how to contact me. And he was trying to draw me in. But once I got in there, me and him, he just said he wanted to ask me some questions about some things. And he was actually very respectful, and he wasn't trolling at all. And I found out that when he's not trolling, you can actually have a pretty goddamn decent conversation with the guy. And then on my request, he went into Smokey Saint's stream, started trolling, and it played out exactly as I wanted it to.
Well, so when did you have that discussion with Will?
That would have been Saturday, I believe, because that's when Smokey, I believe it was Saturday, because I think that's when Smokey had his open mic night. It might have been Friday, though, but if I remember correctly, I think it was Saturday.
It was even before Will's video about how we were praising you, but we didn't know why we were praising you.
Yeah, no, this came after that stream.
No, I thought we just did that like a day or
no. No. Yeah, you're talking about the video that. Yeah. This came before that. My bad. Yeah. I got.
Well, and that video was uploaded, but Will had streamed it like days before that, John. So like he uploaded it, and I covered it the day he uploaded it, but he had actually streamed that a few days before, I think. But yeah, like that's totally awesome. That's good shit. I hope that you and Aaron have a really good discussion. And I can't wait till he puts it up, and I'll go check it out.
Yeah, I think we will have a good discussion, because me and him have pretty much the same philosophy when it comes to our atheism, and because I don't know if he's ever expressed it, but he comes off I would say that Aaron Ra is a naturalist. I'm sure he would probably clarify himself as a naturalist. That's definitely how he talks. We tend to use the same language, like talking that supernatural is just a fancy euphemism for magic. So I do feel that me and him are probably going to have a pretty goddamn fulfilling discussion and eventful discussion. Oh,
Sure.
and I did want to add in for you guys and for the audience, Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be debating the one and only infamous creationist Nephilim Free on Modern Day Debate on creationism versus evolution. And last night I had Erica, otherwise known as Guts Gibbon, Speed of Sound of Gravity, Immutable Destiny, Walker, or Just a Walking Fish, all people who know their shit when it comes to evolution and biochemistry and molecular biology.
Well,
Help
I
me set up
gotta,
my introductory statement. So
I just want to got to call you out a little bit when you were telling us about that. There, you mispronounced the word insane.
yeah, he is insane. I call him infamous because he's not famous. He's infamous.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, Nephi is. You're gonna have.
Well, I know him pretty
Yeah.
well because I've known him since 2015 because he frequented Pal Talk a lot, and I know him from Pal Talk, so I know the arguments, most of the arguments that he's going to bring. I know his discussion style, so this is going to be fun.
It's like how can you have any basis in reality? You're just matter in motion. You don't have any. Fucking dude, man. Yeah, he's a nutcase. And Mr. Parker had said he's going to pop in momentarily. Again, if there's any Christians anybody knows, send an invite out to them. But to start things off, I'd just like to ask Chris: was there anything that particular that you came in here to want to talk about?
I just came in to talk to Knock for a second on his issue going on there and share a little support, because of course, I lost my brother back in 2013 and raised his daughter. So understand that talk, and just to make sure that he had somebody else besides that could keep an eye out, that will keep an eye on him. You know what I mean? They can
right.
Help keep eye on you and look after your daughter in case something was to happen. So,
well, and I got to tell you too, I'm so heartened by Christians like you because, and I don't want to talk bad about any of your friends or anything like that, but guys like Smokey, he was saying some pretty shitty stuff here the other day, but there's folks like you and the Christian Knocknose from out in California, I can't remember his name.
That Christian blogger.
Right. And then, and other Christians that Knox become friends with and I've become friends with that are just such decent people like you are, Chris. And it's very heartening, when somebody that disagrees with us so much fundamentally is still humane enough to, show their support for.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that it's humanity, man. You know what I mean? When we disagree fundamentally on a lot of things. I didn't like it when Praise brought up his daughter, and I mentioned that in one of his comments. So it's just some things are completely off limits because I've been there, done that, and I would not want somebody. I just got my. The youngest niece, she just turned 18 and she's in college. I wouldn't even be bringing her up. I waited until she turned 18 before I even mentioned her on any of these streams. So I'd be very upset if somebody did that to me.
Hey, Randolph. Yeah, I do appreciate it, Chris. I appreciate the concern I've gotten from everybody. But I think it is especially moving when people on the other side can kind of put the differences aside and come together and see the humanity. This is something, I just put it on Twitter. COVID is something, because I'm dealing with it, but then, so many other people have to deal with it. I was just talking to my boss and he might have to, he's pretty much thinking about closing down for a week, doing a very deep cleaning, which means everybody I work with loses their income for a week because I have COVID now. And so it is nice to see people on both sides of that spectrum when it comes to religion, but also when it comes to politics, be able to really unite and come together and have that humanity despite all the differences. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's happened, man, to everybody, and we all have to go through it. So, Christians, whatever your denomination is, you know what I mean? Atheists alike,
I did want to add on to what Chris said, because I think it's a really good point that, we might all have differences in our worldviews and our opinions on things, but for mostly we're all human, and we all need to recognize that and be there for each other when we need other people to be there for us. And I praise him for making that point, because that is a point that there are a lot of people, Christian and non-Christian, that don't think that way, and it's a shame.
I mean, it's fortunate that I would hazard a guess, especially in the westernized countries, that I mean, most of the Christians I've come in contact with in the real world, they might not self-identify like this, but they basically come down to them being humanists. I mean, like I was telling Knock the other day, there was a time in my life while I was an atheist, it was a bad spot in my life, maybe 20 years ago, and I wouldn't have stayed fed if it wasn't for the what do you call pantry at my local Catholic church. So it's like we can talk about different things about things we don't like that the Catholic Church has done. I won't mention the worst of it, which everybody knows about. But when it comes to the people that go to the churches, they're just all human beings like the rest of us. And
I'm seeing
you're cutting out.
Oh darn. Okay.
Yeah, you're botting just a little bit, Randolph, but you sounded better there.
So real quick, before I just want to address something Brian Stevens had asked me a while ago in chat. We haven't really picked a date yet for the debate between me and Gavin. He said he was taking like a couple weeks off. So sometime in the middle of the month, he said he would be back to doing things on the 18th.
What was the topic of that again? I forgot.
Does the Abrahamic God exist?
Okay. I thought
and then there's a question here from Maynard Saves for the panel. He says, how should skeptics approach anomalies in the scientific world and personal life? And I'd like to go ahead and offer that question to Chris first.
Could you repeat that, please? I'm sorry, I had a text.
No, that's okay. And it is on the screen, too. How should skeptics approach anomalies in the scientific world and personal life?
How should skeptics approach it? Like anomalies as in things, abnormalities that happen, such as the COVID virus, or?
Well, I think what Maynard means, and he can correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, is anomalies such that would go against the normal explanation for things.
That's what I was kind of interpreting that to be.
But
well,
Chris,
I'm not a skeptic, so.
Well, right. That's what I was just about to say. Is you can feel free to address that question from your perspective. If you want. I'm trying to.
Well, I mean, and just briefly, I guess I could speak when at the time I was when there was only I never doubted in the Lord, because I've had that personal relationship with the Lord. I'm never gonna not know Jesus, but I was mad at God when my brother passed away. I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say I wasn't. That was a period, because I felt like it should have been me. You know what I mean? Because I never had kids, and I wanted kids, but he was a father of two, and it just didn't make sense to me. But my brother's very part of the reason that I did get saved, and he used to walk me to church and a lot of things, but that I've shared in testimony before, but not on here. But something good did come out of it, because I was able to raise his kids, and I was able to experience that and be a father, and so it helped me grow and brought me closer to the Lord, because it's not, you're not always, as a Christian, you're not always going to be on the mountaintop. A lot of the times you're going to be in the valley, and then you see, for me, I grow closer to the Lord when I'm in the valleys. So I understand that life, that we're in a world that is fallen. You know what I mean? There's, none of us are getting out of here alive. So, you know what I mean? We're all going to die. We're all going to meet our maker. And, I just encourage you to, if you're on the fence, I know a lot of you've made your mind up. If you haven't made your mind up, you know what I mean? Look at some things in intelligent design, things about the cell, how, some things that really do not jive with the current evolution paradigm, and then take it from there. And I'm not saying jump right into Christianity, but keep your mind open that there may be a creator, and they may be.
Yeah. Let me send this question. Pardon me, around the room, and then I would imagine. I know I've only known Leo for a very short time, but I'm sure that he would like to have a little bit of a discussion with you about what you just said. But Leo, how would you answer Maynard's question?
So, and I'm going to run with the definition that for anomaly that you used there, John, because it seems that Maynard confirmed that was the good one. Like things that don't seem to fit within our current scientific framework. Something that's like, hey, this comes along and we don't know exactly how to explain this. The way that I would say that should be approached by anybody, not necessarily just a skeptic, is to figure out what we currently do know that aligns with that. And if there is something that does, then we work from that framework to see if we can rationalize an explanation for this. If there's nothing that we currently have that would explain this or that would fit or concord with this, then that's where we need to start working on hypothetical models that make novel testable predictions, and really just running the scientific method to say, okay, we don't know how to explain this. Let's start running down the process. Let's figure out how we can go about that. And one thing I want to clarify about doing that is answers are not always going to be given right off the bat like that. Sometimes, as in the case of electromagnetism, as in the case of gravity, it took hundreds of years before we had explanations of those. And as in the case of with gravity, we still have an incomplete model. We know that what we do have works and explains things, but we still know that model is incomplete. So if we have anomalies, statistical anomalies or observational anomalies that don't fit, we need to figure out, is there anything that they do fit with or that could help to explain these? And if not, then that's when we need to start down the scientific process to developing an explanation that does comport with the observations that we make concerning that anomaly.
And you brought up gravity. How has the discovery of dark matter done anything to tighten up the gravity theory? Or
in terms of predicting the movements of galaxies and then what are referred to as extragalactic structures, so galactic clusters and superclusters, yes. In terms of how gravity works, no. The reason that I said that gravity is incomplete is because we don't have a quantum description for gravity. We have a classical description of electromagnetism, which is what Maxwell and Faraday kind of kicked that off. He knew there was electricity and magnetism. He knew they were related, but he didn't know how. Maxwell came along, what was it, roughly, it was like anywhere between 80 and 100 years later, something like that. Maybe it was 180 to 200, something like that, years later, and was capable of uniting those with his equations. And then we got quantum electrodynamics, which took it further, which thoroughly explains electromagnetism. We had that for the other two fundamental forces, strong interactions and weak interactions. We don't have a quantum description of gravity. So Einstein's relativity works. We know it works. It's literally never failed any test we've ever put it to. But we still know that it is incomplete because we can't describe it in terms of quantum mechanics.
And you say we don't 100% understand gravity. I mean, from a standpoint of a scientific mind like you have, are we any closer to a theory of everything?
No. And I do want to play just a little bit to what Chris Key said, because there are things within the framework of origins of life research that we just don't even know where to start. But we also see that in physics, and quantum gravity is one of those. The theory of everything is another one of those. What happened in the very earliest moments of the universe is another one. But not knowing how something is explained naturally doesn't mean the explanation has to be supernatural. Now, that doesn't mean it's not supernatural. God forbid it could be the first thing that is. But the precedent we have is for the natural.
I'm
Electromagnetism
sure
is
you've
another
heard.
one. Gravity is another one. Lightning. Almost there isn't really anything that's ever been explained utilizing something that's not natural. Now, and again, I want to clarify that doesn't mean that it can't explain it. We just don't have a precedent for that. And because we don't have a precedent for that, that's not where we start at. Now, if we start collecting data and it starts giving us some implications like, okay, this is really something that we've never seen before, but we're getting this data, then that's when we might see what would be called a paradigm shift.
Well, and
I was just going to ask Leo, do you think it's fair to describe gravity as a fictitious force?
No.
You do not?
No.
Well, and let me get around the room here with this question, and then I do want you and Leo to engage, because you said some interesting things when you gave your answer, Chris. And then just one other quick question for Leo, because I'm just fascinated by all this shit. So you say we're nowhere near the theory of everything yet. That's like the holy grail. If we were to, I say we, like I'm going to have any part of it, but if we were,
I like the word we because we're humans. We're all in this. So that's why I use that word.
I mean, if we did nail down the theory of everything, would that possibly be the impetus to the singularity?
As in the intellectual singularity?
Right, yeah.
I don't know, because what we call the theory of everything is not what it's not what that sounds like prima facie, so to speak.
Right.
So,
to me, what it means is that it would finally be able to account for everything, quantum and
classical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It would be the unification of all four identified fundamental interactions and any more that may potentially be out there. It would explain all fundamental elementary particles, ones that we've discovered, and if there are ones that we haven't discovered, and there probably are with dark matter, dark energy. It would also tell us everything that happens back to the absolute earliest moments of time that could ever be reached, all the way up to the present day, and it would allow us to make future predictions. I can give the equation that is closest to what we have, but it only describes 3 of the 4 fundamental interactions and the interactions between all of the elementary particles, if you would be interested.
Well, maybe.
Well, and before Chris and Leo start interacting, and before you ask your next question, Spartan Theology has a great question. I have a question. So if we reach this theory of everything, do you think people would actually give up their religion in the face of that truth? Yeah,
no.
I think the same thing. All right, so to Spartan's question, Q for Leo, under naturalism, is the theory of everything philosophically possible or likely?
Yes, we know it's there because we know that at high enough energies. So, and this kind of plays to that, is that we have electromagnetism as a fundamental interaction, and then there's another one called the weak nuclear force. More formally, it's referred to as weak interactions. Those can combine into one unified force, kind of like how electricity and magnetism can be divided, but then you can also combine them. Well, electromagnetism and weak interactions can be combined into what's known as the electroweak force. And at even higher energies, we know that the strong interaction can combine into what's known as the electronuclear force. At even higher energies, gravity, the equations of gravity should play into there as well. So we know there is a purported theory of everything. We, still being, quite frankly, a primitive species that does not know everything, just don't know how to go about deriving that yet, and we don't know how to explain that mathematically yet. But it's out there. We know that it's out there. We just don't have the answer for it yet.
Hey, and real quick,
hey, Randolph. Randolph's here, and that's why I wanted to acknowledge him.
I don't want to get disconnected again. I just want to say, in response to Maynard's question earlier, that I recommend he look into the statistical margin of error. He's asking about anomalies, right?
Right, but let me go to Michael and see if he has anything to say on that question we posed from Maynard.
Oh, hello everyone.
Hello, Michael.
But, I guess
Your
I
mic
think
is a bit quiet.
Quite Mike.
Yeah,
That's how
and
we know him.
Randolph's making up for your mic though, because he's like not 5x5, he's like 10x10.
Oh, sorry about that.
Immutable makes a good point, and I can touch on that once we've gone around the room.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the main
But Michael,
discussion.
you didn't really have anything to say, because I'm gonna throw it over to Randolph if you had no comment.
I was just going to say, I think I agree with what Leo said for the most part. If he didn't address this, maybe if I wasn't listening or hearing everything, the one thing I would add would be that I think scientists should always be willing to expand upon that which they might not know. And, if there is something that doesn't appear to conform to what we already are aware of, then I think the skeptic should be open-minded, skeptical, but also willing to improve and expand upon that which they are currently aware of. I think that's how the method works, and that's how we correct and improve.
And those were both great answers, and I just want to tell Will Kincaid I understood both of them.
Hey,
Excellent.
real quick, I want to address Jessica had asked a question. Jessica 44 asked a question a little while ago. There is a link that is periodically posted in the live chat where you can go check the channel, and it'll give you an opportunity to leave a message, and we will be notified of that, and then Knock can go into that website and find your message and acknowledge your tip. There's no super chat at the present time because dumbass YouTube demonetized Knock's channel a while back.
It's fucking stupid.
And so, Randolph, I think you wanted to get on this. You had put in a private chat that you wanted to talk to Leo about this. Randolph?
Oh, sorry. I was just dealing with somebody here. So I did see a point from Immutable Destiny talking about distinguishing between theory of everything and a grand unified theory. I'm wondering, what is the theory of everything that they're referring to? I'm not aware that there was one developed yet.
No, not yet.
That would be worthy of a Nobel Prize, wouldn't it?
Well, no, yeah, it hasn't been
most
developed yet by
certainly.
any means.
Several Nobel Prizes. Several.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and
All Nobel Prizes. It's a theory of everything.
but I mean, wait a minute, isn't unified field? Aren't those synonymous? Or are those two different things?
No. So, and why don't I just make that distinction now? So, the theory of everything explains the entire, what's known as the standard model of elementary particles, which would be essentially a graph of all elementary particles, even ones we haven't discovered yet, along with all identified fundamental forces in nature, along with the cosmological history. Now, a unified field force.
And I would just add to that it would have to explain absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Because I get what you're saying. And then a unified field force or a unified field theory or grand unified theory, it's often known, just explains
Grand unified theory is what they wrote. Yeah,
grand unified theory, or also known as a unified field theory, would be what just explains the four, because we're pretty sure that the four identified fundamental forces are probably the only ones, given that if there were other ones, we definitely should have found out about it by now, and we haven't. There still could be, and if there are, they have to be just because of the energy levels that we've reached.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Can you substantiate that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I can only people want to call it an appeal to authority. I would refer to it as more a deferment to expertise. The physicists at the Large Hadron Collider have said that it is not likely that we should discover another fundamental force. They're
saying not likely. They're not saying they're not ruling it out.
Yeah, it's not ruled out. It's just not likely. But a unified field force or unified field theory, because there would be a unified field force, but the unified field theory just combines all fundamental interactions in nature into one field theory that describes all of them together.
Yeah, that's a big dream to have something like that, and it's a wonderful dream.
Mm-hmm. And we should get that once we have quantum gravity and can figure out how to work those equations into the current standard models, what's referred to as its Lagrangian density, which is the equation that currently describes the three of the four fundamental interactions, how fermions and leptons can interact, how leptons and bosons can interact, or well, I should say quarks and leptons can interact, how leptons and bosons can interact, and how bosons and quarks can interact.
Hinokasuchi, do you know Mama Atheist?
Yes.
She would be a really good person to have in on this particular topic.
Yeah, she would.
This
is right up her alley.
I know that she has been dealing with some pain, and every once in a while she'll pop into the side chat. But yeah, she would be an excellent person to be here and have this conversation with you, Leo. Definitely,
her knowledge on this area is top of the line.
Once I get my channel
I just want to say that Spartan Theology, come on in. Here, we'll put the link in again, and then as far as where we go from here, I want to jump back to Chris and Leo to maybe engage for a few minutes, because
I was going to go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, well, because Chris had said something about taking exception to evolution, and I was thinking that he and Leo could have a pretty decent back and forth on that to maybe get the ball rolling for tonight.
Well, and real quick, I just do want to acknowledge the chat. Thank you everybody for being here. Floyd FP is here. What's up, Floyd? And a very special hello to Ann Kennedy, big supporter of the show. I haven't seen you in a while, Ann. It's nice to see you back, and glad you're here. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, before we jump on that, the reason I brought up fictitious forces, because Einstein. Let me back up and just read this so I don't jumble it or mess it up. Fictitious forces are forces are proportional to the mass of the object at which they act, which is true for gravity. So you're talking about gravity, and it says this led Einstein to wonder whether gravity was a fictitious force as well. He noted that a free-falling observer in a closed box would not be able to detect the force of gravity. Hence, free-falling reference frames are equivalent to inertial reference frame.
Equivalence principle, yep.
I'll see the equivalence principle. Okay, now following up on this insight, Einstein was able to formulate a theory with gravity as a fictitious force and attributing the apparent acceleration of gravity to the curvature of space-time. This ideal underlines Einstein's theory of general relativity. So is it?
Hold on. Did you say underlines or undermines?
Underlines.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Excuse me. Actually, underlies.
Okay.
Underlies.
Okay. Yep.
Underlies is what he said. Yeah.
But is it maybe possible that gravity is not what we think it is?
Well, we know that it's curvature in space-time's geometry. That the reason they call it a fictitious force is because, unlike, say, strong interactions, which is kind of an easier example to use than electromagnetism, it isn't carried as far as we know, and their gravitons probably don't exist. It isn't carried by a fundamental particle like the other three are. So it's a force in the sense that it acts on other objects, obviously, but it's not a force in the sense that what it really is just things moving along the curves in space-time.
Right. And do you see any relationship?
Real quick, I need to interrupt the two of you, because I know that Randolph had given me a heads up that he's going to have to start driving here in like 2 minutes. And
go ahead.
Yeah, probably actually in less than 30 seconds. I'm probably going to have to get going. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a final word. And
I just wanted to say, are you sure he didn't call it a fictitious force because he's a prankster?
Well, no. Oh, I thought you were. He definitely referred to it as that. Yeah, it's just I consider it a force. Most of the physicists say, well, it's a force because it acts on objects, but it isn't a force in the way. That's why I'm
agree.
The weak force.
I'm sorry, I do have to go. I'd love to hear more. I'm going to tune in later. Thank you so much for bringing me on for a few minutes here. I really appreciate it.
All right, Randolph.
Take it easy, Randolph.
Thanks, Randolph. I always love having you on, man.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
All right, and then so I kind of cut you off there, Chris. So if you wanted to continue on with your thoughts, just real quick, I want to remind everybody we do have enough people in the room, and then once they get done with this little interaction, we're gonna throw it over to. I want them to, the two of them to talk about evolution, because I was intrigued by what Chris said.
Can I make a quick distinction for somebody in the chat? Korag Nightwolf said quantum gravity will replace Einstein's general relativity. That is not true. It will not replace it. It will just add on to it. Similarly, relativity did not replace Newtonian mechanics. It simply honed it. It's a more accurate way of describing reality, but we still use classical mechanics frequently. We used classical mechanics, not relativity, to send people to the moon, and we continue to use it when we send things into space.
Well, and the thing, like I like unscientific mind that I have, I like to think of it as it's like a layer cake. Each layer builds below it.
Exactly. It's like a staircase. Yes.
Real quick, John, let me cut in. I have gotten a couple tips. So I want to thank Jessica44 for her $10 tip. Hope you get better soon. Thank you so much. I will keep you informed. And Scott Duke, thank you for your $5 tip. I would have wasted it on Sonic onion rings anyway. Might as well give it to Knock.
And
so thank you guys. Thank you.
So we have enough people in the room. I just want to remind everybody, utilize the internal private chat. Throw up a hand emoji or the word hand so that I know you want to get in. And then we're trying to do it so that put something in there next to where you put the hand. Yeah. You want it on the current topic, or you're coming in with a new topic.
P. Mars is itching to get in here. So.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing my best to ignore him, but we're going to get him in here. But again, back over to Chris to finish his thought, and then you guys kick it off.
I was just I'm sure you're a proponent of the Big Bang, right, Leo?
Yes. So the reason I hesitate is because I don't refer to it as the Big Bang theory or the hot Big Bang model, simply because we've built on that, and nowadays it's referred to as a standard model of cosmology, but we refer to it as the lambda CDM. Lambda would be the Greek symbol lambda, representing dark energy and the accelerated expansion of space-time as a result of it. And the CDM stands for cold dark matter, which we had to incorporate because we now know that there is dark matter out there. But generally, yes, the whole that the universe started in a very, very hot, dense state and expanded out from there. The Big Bang, yes, I accept.
Well, and I'm not sure if Chris is aware of this, but the Big Bang theory was originally proposed as a pejorative against
by Fred Hoyle, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it's called the Big Bang Theory. I try to call it the Big Expansion at this point, just because so many Christians, so many Christians comment on it.
Well, and just a word of advice to the audience: don't ever Google Big Bang Theory /porn.
I don't even want to know.
Now I have to, John. Damn it.
But anyway, yeah, fellas, if you want to.
I can probably wrap it up real quick. What I was going to finish with him.
Yeah, sure.
You agree that it was gravity in the beginning, ever how you describe it, would have had to have been pretty. I hate to use the word fine tuned, but it would have had to have been like the other forces. It would have had to have been at least guide. There's something that's that pulled it to be the way that it's measured the way it is, right? Correct?
Well, the way I would word it is that it had some value. Why it had that value, we don't know, and there probably isn't an objective meaning or purpose for why. And similar to other things that we are currently beginning to explain, such as baryon asymmetry or the matter-antimatter difference, and there's some other ones, there are probably underlying quantum mechanical reasons for why those values were had.
And one curious thing I'd be curious on, what's your interpretation of why we see so many spirals in the universe today?
Dark matter.
In nature in general.
I thought you meant spirals and why are so many galaxies spiral? Are you referring to
galaxies,
the
of course,
rule?
would be an example, but hurricanes.
Are you referring to more of the golden rule where
Fibonacci sequence? Yeah, I mean, go best you mean.
It's just because it's mathematically ubiquitous.
Could it be a signature? Maybe.
It could be. I would say that it's probably not. It's just a repeated pattern that we can see, kind of like what is it? Euler? It's either Euler's number or Euler's formula. Immutable would know more than that, but that's ubiquitous as well. So it's just, and given that we can describe the universe, because that's all math is. Math is not some fancy thing that supervenes reality that tells it what to do. It's a language humans invented that helps us to describe it and what it does and how it functions. So when we observe things being consistent, we can describe those mathematically, and that's what the golden ratio
we even see it in the DNA hill, in the spiral form of DNA. Mm-hmm. So,
and I think it just plays to the what is often referred to as the uniformity of nature.
And and so if you flush, let's say you was to flush your commode wherever let's say if you're on the, I'm in the United States, it would go one way, and if you were, let's say in Australia, it'd go the other way. Of course, you're on the equator, it can go both ways. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's.
I
maybe,
think that's more a result of momentum.
and that's where I'm getting at, because maybe gravity is not necessarily a force; it's a fictitious force. You know what I mean?
Well, and it depends on how we look at it. We generally consider it a fictitious force or a pseudo force because, again, there isn't a thing like a particle that was. Particle is
Right.
that I could go off about that term because that goes in quantum field theory. But there isn't a particle being exchanged between
Right.
the things. It's just things falling along the curvature of space.
And you believe we detect the gravity waves, right? You believe that?
Oh yeah. We definitely have detected gravitation.
I mean, the other thing is
albeit it's very,
the
very
reason,
kinda-
the reason that you can describe it as a force is it's gradient.
Yes,
I mean,
it has a gradient and it affects objects.
So real quick, before we do dive into evolution, both Mr. Parker and Immutable had their hands up. Mr. Parker, you're first.
Welcome, brothers.
P. Mars doesn't want to talk. Holy shit!
I haven't seen his hand in the chat yet. I mean,
So yeah, I've been listening on this like since the beginning of this, and Leo's done a pretty amazing job of describing what scientists and physicists have discovered about the universe and how we're describing it so far. And yeah, I think it's an important difference we need to make between that grand uniform theory and a theory for everything, because grand uniform is like about the forces like weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, gravity, electromagnetism, and like that. And then the theory of everything is literally a theory of everything.
Yeah,
but,
and
yeah, you can step off that. I'm fine with
yeah,
that.
and if you ask me, the only potential theory of everything we have currently is string theory. Because string theory,
And I hate that term because it is not a theory. It is not a theoretical framework. It's a hypothetical model, and it's probably not true.
well,
It's
you
a
know, and I got to
mathematical
tell you, man, I'm always led astray in science because, you know, there's scientific theories, there's a colloquial usage of theory, and I noticed that scientists interchange those an awful lot, and
Yes.
and I think it's confusing.
annoying.
I think they should use the word hypothesis when it's actually a hypothesis.
Yeah.
well, string theory is fundamentally a mathematical theory, but there's been significant advancements with the theory that seem to be closer to modeling reality. But yeah, regarding the whole gravitational waves things, we've observed them multiple times, and they all have the same signature as one another.
Yeah, we've observed there's LIGO, which is, oh God, help me out here, Immutable. Is that Arizona, I think?
I
Here
think
in the United States, and then there's another one in, I think it's Japan. I think it's definitely an Asian country, and we've detected the same signatures at the same time from the same place from both of those places.
Yeah, pretty positive.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, Phil Kayo had pointed out, I put it up on the screen. He says that the flushing thing is a myth. Coriolis isn't strong enough at that scale. What do you guys say to
Why
that?
do we observe it happening?
Yeah, you can observe that.
But it's literally observational.
I think I read that. I think I read that is true, but there's definitely effects like the hurricanes.
Even in the
Oh, yeah.
heart, even in your
in
heart,
certain
even in the way the
directions based on
blood
the
pumps in the
Coriolis.
heart, it's a vortex or spin. It's a spiral vortex. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting to me. This is why I love having Leo on, because he knows the science, and this is why I try to surround myself with smarter folks, because I get approached with science questions all the time from Christians, and I can't answer them. So
get smart by osmosis. Get it.
You like
Yeah,
having,
yeah.
you like having Leo on. What's Immutable and Mr. Parker?
well, Immutable and Mr.
Are they
Parker and
are they
Drag
chopped over?
and
Are you saying they're chopped
Sokka.
over?
I
No,
was
all
just
of
about
them.
to say, I like having Immutable
of them.
here because I tend to forget things or I'll be confused. Okay, is it this or is it this? And he's usually there to be able to help me. Nope, this is what it is. Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah, the funniest thing about Will
It's
Kincaid
nice having
stream
somebody that can help corroborate.
the funniest thing about that Will Kincaid stream was when he was like, "Yeah, I don't think Immutable knows what he's talking about." And I'm like, "All right, Will, you're a fucking idiot."
Well, come into the room and challenge me. Come, tell me I don't know.
Okay,
Let's see how that goes.
Which is funny because
I have an answer
But
for the drain
Yeah,
question.
and we'll get you.
I even
Mars,
told him, I was
but
like,
still
dude,
haven't seen you
Immutable
put your
probably
hand
knows
up
more
in the-
about math than I do.
I still haven't seen you put your
Oh.
hand up in the private chat. So look,
It was just that question that we just talked
Yeah,
about.
that's okay.
about
Put your
drain.
hand
I
up in
got
the private chat.
answer to it.
so we're gonna
Okay,
move
well,
on.
I'll just
We're gonna move
have the
on
answer.
to.
Oh, John, I don't want to interrupt you. I did want to make one last comment on the previous topic.
Oh, go ahead.
Immutable, go, and then let P Mars chime in. But then P Mars, do put your hand up in the side chat because that is the system we are using.
Yeah, in regards to string theory, I can understand the skepticism surrounding the theory. Although one of the reasons I think it's true, or that it's likely to be true, is that historically, I mean, string theory is number one. It's a field. It's the first of its kind in terms of physics to actually inspire mathematics to develop new theories. It beat mathematics at its own game of creativity. But also, it's undeniable that in the course of various theoretical models for understanding cosmology and also various other things, that string theory has played a very instrumental role in terms of acting as a modeling tool for constructing mathematical models that we can use to predict these phenomenon. And it dates back as early to nuclear decay.
I like string theory because of vibrational frequencies. It's audible, and God speaks things into existence. So that would make a lot of sense in my worldview.
The vibration is not literally a vibration. That would be more. The word I would use is perturbation.
Change in the structure of a string. It's how a string is excited and changes its oscillation frequency
but oscillation,
over time. But
string theory, and I'm going to say this: the string models originated as a way of explaining what we now call quantum chromodynamics, or the mathematical field theoretical description of Jesus, I just lost my train of thought. Strong interactions, a strong nuclear force.
Yeah.
But it didn't actually end up explaining it, and we still haven't really explained anything with it, nor have we ever found any observational evidence. I think it is useful as a mathematical tool. I think it will help us develop our theories of everything and our unified field theory, but I don't think it's going to be the string models. I would say that if I had to pick out of any of the models we have currently, because I think none of them are going to be correct, at least certainly not in full, would probably be either loop quantum gravity or ADS-CFT correspondence, which is a gauge gravity duality.
Yeah, so I mean, at least I know enough about quantum gravity that even if you were to be able to demonstrate quantum gravity, that doesn't give you a theory of everything.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Long shot.
So P Mars, what did you want to get in and say?
Okay, well, the answer to the spinning of the direction of water, it is affected by Coriolis effect. However, in the real world, that effect is probably swamped by other less uniform influences. So, like maybe the shape of the sink or something like that would have more of a influence than the Coriolis effect on how it drains. So that would be the answer to that.
That's a good question.
But I also had a question for Nog. It's kind of not science related. I don't know.
Well, go
ahead. So I watched Smokey's stream today.
I haven't yet.
You haven't watched it? Okay. Well, there's a point at the end.
Listen to him bloviate like an emotional leaf blower because that's all he ever fucking does.
I love it. I can't get enough. So.
He's the gift that keeps on giving.
He is. Yeah.
At the end of his stream, he started to criticize Christians who were loving and saying that you can't be loving towards people like Knock.
Oh man.
And he was he's basically trying to justify his behavior and saying that, and he made the point that Knock loves it when Christians are loving and acceptance and tolerant of you or something, but he doesn't like it when people are like Smokey and challenge you or whatever Smokey imagines he does. So, but I argued, I was like, Smokey, you're totally opposite is true, because I think Knock loves angry, freak out, fundy Christians. And if you're just a cool, chill, nice Christian, you're not doing anything that's Knock would, say is immoral or something, he's not going to even be interested in you because you're not content for his channel. But I don't know.
Well, I think you're somewhat accurate. Now, I do appreciate the progressive Christians with the more moderate views, and I do appreciate Christians that can justify to themselves and rationalize with themselves and come to different interpretations based upon the Bible than your more fundamentals. But no, I think what you're saying is right. I'm not going to focus on you if you're one of those Christians, right? So I am literally I love the vitriol and I love the rancor of back and forth between two people that don't like each other. So yeah, I think that I gravitate more towards that naturally. So when he's saying that, he's probably addressing the fact that I do make those distinctions and I do say, hey, there are really good Christians out there. Smokey ain't one of them, and he's probably trying to gain some ground on that argument.
Have you seen
Yeah,
the Aaron Raw Kent Hovind debate? Because if you like the rancor between people who don't like each other,
Oh
that's
yeah,
on the old NSS, the non sequitur show.
oh yeah,
my
I
God,
loved
that-
those
that,
ones. Yeah.
that was so beautiful because every time that Kent tried to put forward his completely false ideas, Aaron would stop him right there. And he said, no, that's completely wrong. Instead of letting Kent do his normal shtick of gish galloping 50 different points,
Oh yeah, and Kent and all the Christians still talk about all the times Aaron Ra interrupted Kent Hovind. You still hear about it today.
And
You can't have a productive. You can't have a productive debate with Ken Hovind without interrupting him.
Exactly. Just
yeah.
like with Darby Dawkins. You're
Like,
over
it's
talking
inevitable.
me.
so look,
I was just gonna
we're
say,
eventually going to get to the fucking topic I wanted to talk about. But
No.
so it's like Smokey's approach is so bizarre to me. Where it's not like it's as if Jesus went around beating people over the head with his worldview and logic and reason to change them. It's like, no, Jesus just loved people. And like one time I brought up constructive criticism on a panel where Smokey was on about how, if you compliment someone 2 times before you criticize them and then compliment them after you criticize them, I think they're going to be more receptive to your criticism.
That is a fact.
And Smokey's like, that's just you care about feelings too much. And
Get
Well,
more
right,
flies
and
than
the thing
honey.
is about that, P. Mars, is I identified that a while back, and what I said about it is Smokey has this backwards compliment sandwich. He says a couple shitty things about you, then compliments you, then says a couple more shitty things about you. He does it backwards. But so look, when we addressed Maynard's question a while back, and I let Chris go first, and some of the things he said kind of indicated to me that you don't necessarily accept, if not all of it, but parts of evolution.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I don't accept the evolution in the terms of the common ancestor. I don't think it's been demonstrated.
Okay. I mean, how do
So
you?
what about the fossil record?
Hold on, Immutable.
What about the fossil
I
record?
want to clarify that.
It shows it, and
Well, wait
so
a
does genomics.
Yeah. Let John.
Wait. Stop. I'm trying to get in here, right? So when you say common ancestor, but then when you say you don't believe in that, do you believe in the Bible story of Adam and Eve and and then at the flood there was 8 people left over? I mean,
Have you guys took any time to look at Standing for Truth's channel at all?
God.
He's
Yeah,
we already know he's wrong.
he's specifically addressing this right now.
And
Okay.
he's still wrong.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, you're claiming it's still wrong,
But what my
I'm not
question-
claiming
what-
it. Any
wait a minute.
professional, and they have many of them,
Well, he
many
has many
times have
doctors
showed
on-
them that he's wrong.
PhDs
And
on the
all
show.
of those are already
Okay.
creationists who are already biased towards
Well,
his view, and they as well have also been shown to be wrong. There's a reason why what he's saying and all the professionals like
Okay,
Sal,
well.
who isn't a professional in this field because he has no degrees relevant to anything related to organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biochemistry, molecular biology, evolutionary theory, immunobiology, nothing. So he's a professional in physics because he's got a master's in applied physics. But there's a reason why Standing and all of his professionals have been thoroughly rebuked by the overwhelmingly vast majority of all the relevant fields and the academic literature upon which they demonstrate that he's wrong. So
I mean, look,
the spell of the consensus and the academic literature that thoroughly supports the consensus, and he might have a point, but he
right
hasn't done
before.
that.
Okay, what about
Wait.
soft
Okay,
I'm just gonna take
I'm
one
trying to
point.
get this question in, and then you guys can go, and I'll stay out of it. You said you don't, abide by the common ancestor theory, but wouldn't that be what the Bible is putting forward as well in a different format? Like, if they're saying that everybody came from one couple, Adam and Eve, wouldn't that be a common ancestor theory?
As far as Homo sapiens, like let's say, okay, for example, you have some old Earth creationists. Okay, for example, Hugh Ross. Okay, he made a prediction that Neanderthals were not human. Okay,
Isn't
then
Hugh Ross an astrophysicist?
Yeah.
Okay, that's that. Okay, yep.
And I think, isn't it science? Like Neanderthals, I mean, technically speaking, they're not Homo
They're
sapiens.
not
Well,
Homo
they're not.
sapiens.
well, see,
They're
that's
sapiens.
why I said you need to go to Standing for
Standing
Truth's
for
channel
Well, standing
and,
I-
not
I- I-
and debunk some of
So-
the
He has no
the
degrees.
challenges he has put on there. It doesn't matter.
Well,
So
Okay, you got
I
to get
get
off
my
that hang
information
up.
All right,
from-
hold on,
You're
everybody.
appealing- you're
Stop.
appealing to
You
Everybody
guys-
stop.
yeah, everybody stop.
Stop. All right. You got
You gotta let
to
Chris
put
finish.
your hand up in the private chat. When you guys talk over one another, the audience can't hear shit. It just sounds like the Peanuts parents. Wah, 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 wah. All right. So anyway, Leo and Chris, one of you.
Well, Chris was speaking. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah, let's try not to overspeak people and let them finish their points.
Yeah, I was just saying that as far as we got to take one thing at a time because I mean, you can get scalped the other way too here. So, you're talking about specifically Neanderthals is what I was talking about. Okay, when I was saying that the old Earth creationists, Fuzzrana, Hugh Ross specifically made a prediction that they were not human. Well, we've done the DNA and found that they did actually, for whether you believe they're human or not, they interbred with humans. You accept that, correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
he made
Yeah,
he made a prediction that they had no human DNA at all or Homo sapien. When I use the word human, I'm you know what I mean. So he has to believe that somehow weirdly humans mated with animals. You know what I mean?
Well, humans are animals.
So
Okay, but I'm
humans
saying
are
from his
technology.
worldview. From his worldview, you understand
well,
what I'm saying?
even from his worldview, humans are animals.
Not from Hugh
If he
Ross's
rejects
worldview.
that, then he's just wrong, and I'm not going to work from
Okay,
a
that's
worldview
fine.
that
Oh
That's
yeah,
fine.
no, but
wrong.
internal critique from that worldview. They Christians don't see human beings as animals in that sense.
Okay, so let me
you know
ask
what
a
I'm
few
saying?
questions there.
But
Then.
We're literally like
humans,
gods.
are humans bipedal?
Yeah,
Okay, do humans consume organic matter?
yeah,
Do humans have an internal digestive system?
yeah,
Do humans sexually reproduce?
yeah.
Humans are animals. You just admitted it for me.
I didn't say. Hold on a second. man.
No,
By
that's
definition.
the classification
I'm
of an
telling you
animal.
what they
Well,
said,
yeah,
and I'm not necessarily
Humans
saying
are animals in the same way that the moon is a satellite of the Earth.
Well,
organisms. man.
yeah,
We can
same
use
thing.
semantics all day. We're all organisms, okay? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, what we're going to is kinds, which you're going to go straight to what's a kind. Of course, you know what I mean. I would ask you what's a species. But let's not do that, okay?
Yeah,
That's-
let's go there because
Well,
I
I
can
mean,
actually
Real quick, immutable.
It's
Hold
been
on.
done.
Hold
We're not
on.
gonna get
Mr.
anywhere
Parker
there.
had his hand up first, and then it's you, immutable. So go ahead, Mr. Parker.
I think it's quite interesting how he brings up Standing for Truth, who's not so credible, and he has been known, and Raw Matt has been known to edit their content when they are proven wrong repeatedly. And then he brings up Hugh Ross, an astrophysicist, I'm pretty sure, about biology and his statement on theology because
No,
he's
I'm
somehow.
not using Hugh Ross for an example. I didn't mean to
Well, no,
overtalk
you
but
quoted
right.
him as
as
authority.
being wrong is what I was
Yeah,
saying.
because he's not a biologist or
But
a,
I was just saying what he had said. But the reason I was saying that was
Why-
because okay.
no, go ahead.
The reason I was saying that was because like he made a prediction. Okay. Now there
okay.
Stanford Truth has some predictions on his channel, in respect to Neanderthals. Okay, you'll have to go watch
right.
them and you'll have to investigate it to see what I'm talking about. But if you've not been watching it and following it, then you're not gonna be able to.
I'm not a professional. I can't investigate it. I will leave that to. I will defer
Okay.
to the experts in
Well,
that field.
they
and
are.
let them do that.
He's and currently with him and other PhDs are going back and forth with, of course, Dan, Cardinal, and Gutstick Gibbon, and a few others. Okay, now they're putting out some challenges, and we're waiting for the rebuttal videos. But apart from that, I mean, we're getting a little bit off what you guys were going from. Back to the original topic was you asked me, do I believe in evolution as postulated? What the current modern synthesis or your neo-Darwinism? What are you talking about?
Just
As a
evolutionary theory.
Yeah, evolutionary theory. And real quick, I do want to interject. As far as I know, SFT does not have a PhD. As far as I know, he works in like a video store.
I believe he works as a nurse. Actually, I've talked to him
yeah,
before.
yeah, well, yeah. I did talk to him. It was like 2 years ago, and I think he said, yeah. So it could have changed since then, but
Who's that?
Standing for Truth.
Standing for Truth.
I believe he works in a medical field, if I'm mistaken.
Yes, I believe
Yeah, that's
so.
what
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean.
but my ultimate point though is he's not a PhD, and he
No, he's not a
yeah.
PhD.
Well, I thought I heard you say that he was a PhD. So
No,
my fault. My fault.
It's Standing for Truth is like a team of people. It's not just one person. So they have a lot of people that support and back him, and quite a few of them are PhDs.
People.
Yeah, I only know Standing as just one dude. I'm
Yeah, I
sure
think
he
he's
has people
referring to
working with
people
him,
like
Yeah. Okay.
like Raw Matt
Sal
and people like
Cordova.
that. Yeah.
Who's the other one? I think maybe James Tour's been on. He had another one on.
Statler.
What was his name? Yeah, Stadler,
Hey,
who also has no degrees in any fields related
James
to
Tour.
biology.
So wait a minute. That whole field of idiocy is not just one person. There's like a whole bunch of
Doctor,
them.
the two Dr. Carters. One's a biochemist. I mean, so it's.
I mean, I find again, I'm not an expert in science by any stretch of the imagination, but I find it hard to believe. Like, one thing, you're not lending any credence to your viewpoints by bringing up SFT, and I don't.
No, I mean, I wasn't trying to. I was specifically talking about Neanderthals. He has a video. That's what I was getting at. So I was wondering if he was familiar with it.
Had his hand up for a while there, and he wanted to get in after Mr. Parker. Go ahead.
Sure.
So, I mean, when you're saying you reject common ancestry, you're referring to like universal common ancestry or just common ancestry on all grounds?
Yeah, the common ancestry that would link me to a bacteria.
Okay, so why do you think it's incorrect?
Because I don't see the evidence that links me there. I mean, let's say, for example, you have the how many Homo erectus fossils do we have?
Quite a few hundred.
Enough, not that many. Okay, yeah.
No, it's in the hundreds. It's more than you
Hundreds,
think.
okay. But then you'll say, okay, the reason you don't have all these fossils between ape and human is because it's very hard. Now, I agree, it's very hard to make a fossil, but the fossils that we do have are very well preserved, and that kind of corresponds exactly with a global flood, so a catastrophe that would.
It shows us that mud can preserve these things well, and it does.
Okay,
and we know that it can.
Let's go through that point. I mean, I could.
Well, what? Okay, let's say you got a living fossil that's unchanged for hundreds of million years. Okay, I know you're going to say purposely suited to the environment, but how does that go for, like, let's say the horseshoe crab 400 million years without absorbing all the mutations that it does? Just it can't help but that's what drives it. You know what I mean?
So
Evolution.
do you not? So are you familiar with the fact that in like the fields of biochemistry that Standing likes to talk about, that there are classes of enzymes and well understood genetic mechanisms? And by well understood, I mean these were discovered and their mechanisms were elucidated in the 70s. That essentially the machinery within inside the cell can correct errors that occur to mutations in DNA. Are you aware of that?
Of error correction in DNA?
Yes, of error correction mechanisms in DNA.
There's error corrections in DNA, which is very hard to even. How would you get that coming from, to start out with? How would that evolve?
How would that evolve? You would have some enzymes that have an affinity towards DNA and some that are capable of catalyzing reactions. You put those two together and you have something which is capable of specificity and also the ability to catalyze a template.
You need a ribosome first, though, right?
Base pairing.
You need a ribosome first, right?
No, you wouldn't. You can assemble strings of nucleotides without the need for that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Chris, were you aware that that most Christian scholars do not ascribe to a worldwide flood theory?
I mean that's irrelevant to me.
Well,
could I clarify? Do you think it was a worldwide flood or a local area flood that would have been considered worldwide at the time?
Well, the reason I think it's a worldwide flood, I think there's evidence for one. All the stories that we have just about every culture of a flood story. You have,
except for
but that would have been localized in a very small area at the time, though.
Okay, I live in Tennessee. Okay, I live on a mountain, a huge, very top of a mountain, and you've got there's shells and whatnot in the mountain, in limestone, whatever.
Okay, who wants to attack that?
There were before those were mountains.
Yeah, there's a lot of plate tectonics.
And we know for a fact there was never a global flood. There are societies like the Egyptian society that lived right through the period. There is a thorough recorded history of them living to it, apparently oblivious to the fact that they're drowning.
Yeah, and not to mention
Okay,
geology has
let's go a
disproven.
different route. I'll look.
What?
Here's another reason. I'm just, if you're asking, here's some reasons that I'll give you. I mean, just. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm just saying, to me, be objective. I look at a lot of these fossils that I see from. They're supposedly 60, 70, 80 million years old. You take the coelacanth, for example. It disappeared. It was supposedly an index fossil. Then it reappeared, and lo and behold, it's alive today.
It is. Oh,
Okay, hold on. I'm not done. We have amberlized fossils of bees.
Yep.
They look just like bees today. We have dragonflies, although they were bigger, 3.5 feet wide, look identical as they're morphology wise, they're the same as today. Spiders, same as today. Bats, same as today. Okay. And these did not change in 67 million years. Okay, where's the change at? Okay, so gradualism didn't get it done. So then they postulated punctuated equilibrium.
Hold on, Immutable, because Mr. Parker had his hand up, so we're going to him next.
so
Go ahead.
to talk about I don't know how to pronounce them, but the species of fish that was used, you mentioned, and we rediscovered them later. I think in Australia seas.
Coelacanths.
Yes, those. That's not just like a single species like humans. That's a giant classification. I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's what you guys will always say, is that, like, even though they look the same, that maybe the biological pathways and this have changed, but like I'm just saying,
it's a giant classification. You're saying
you're saying it's a different species, but it looks to be the same.
They are different species.
So let's.
But 400, excuse me, I think it's 200 or 200 to 300 million years, and that's all the change you got. And there was supposedly, the missing link between,
Yeah, it's a different species. That's the difference.
Okay, so that species didn't change. That particular species didn't change in what, 200 something million years. How does it absorb?
That's a
Hold
broad.
on. So what you're conflating is the fact that the morphological structure, that what you're seeing from this fossil doesn't appear to change very much from the
at all.
Yes,
it doesn't appear to change at all.
Okay, but the issue with that fundamentally is that we base evolutionary trees on twin-nested hierarchy. So we base it upon the level of similarity organisms have to another, but we also based upon genetic factors as well. Mm-hmm. So in the coelacanths, we know that their genetics has changed quite radically to what it was. But
How do we know that? You don't have the DNA from a 200 million year old fossil.
You can predict what it would be from creatures that are very similar to it.
No, you can't predict that. No.
Yeah, you
can. Wait. From your model, right, you predict that various kinds are related to each other. So you would also probably argue that the DNA that relates them can be used to make predictions about characteristics about those organisms, right?
Say that again, please.
If I have the genome of a fish, so say it's zebrafish or coelacanth or whatever.
From the yeah.
Right?
I agree. You can have different species of a fish, yes, of the same.
Well, I was asking, can you use the genomic characteristics to infer various characteristics about the anatomy and morphology of that organism?
I'm not sure if I can qualify to answer that question, to be honest.
Okay, so if that's the case, right, and we can use developmental biology and other things to map how those things change, right? That is a way in which we can estimate what the structure of these organisms would have been, right?
Okay. So let's say I could give you literally 1,000 different organisms that look almost identical to their millions of year old counterpart.
Sure.
Okay, 1,000.
Sure.
And can you show me 1,000 different like transitional species that would be? Where are all these missing links that should be there?
Why are you okay? So the issue that you brought up earlier about punctuated equilibria is that this idea that gradualism seems to think
That's a
seems
fairy
to
tale within a fairy tale, right there.
Okay, the issue you're bringing up isn't related to punctuated equilibria.
No,
Because you're
that was just
asking
one of my
why do
points.
some organisms, in terms of their anatomy and morphology, not change over time? The notion of transitional species is represented when various phyla diversify and start to give rise to new clades.
Right. I understand that. What I see in the fossil records
Can I
is
wait a minute? Can I get a
extinction and
clarification from you,
stasis.
Chris? Are you hung up on the idea that any evolutionary change should be visually apparent?
Over millions of years, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just not the case.
So let's go with the basics here, right? If during the time frame which these organisms began to appear, which is Precambrian and Cambrian, and their structure has been essentially was essentially determined at that point.
And the
Why would
Cambrian explosion?
Hold on. Why would there be a need for the anatomy and morphology of those organisms over time to change so drastically if it's still part of the same species?
Because all these other animals are changing in hundreds of millions of years. You're talking about dinosaurs
Their
going from
ancestors
birds.
are changing.
You're talking about dinosaurs going to birds, and then you have how are they hiding from these whatever's driving these other animals to change? You know, I know that you have individual niches, but like exactly. But I'm just saying, like, you know, if this whatever's driving this change is not just selective pressure. You know what I mean?
Well, sure. I mean,
well, you did cite a
so the thing is,
there. Well, real quick, Immutable, and I'll let you go. I don't think that dinosaurs changed into birds. I think the ancestors of birds were
birds
dinosaurs.
are tested within paleontological communities.
What was the ancestors of butterflies? I mean, I'm not trying to do a gotcha question here. I'm going somewhere.
So, what was the ancestor of butterflies?
What's the precursor to a butterfly?
Likely an insect because butterfly.
Likely an insect. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Where is the fossil evidence for the precursors to a butterfly?
I can look it up for you. But
you're not going to find much, I promise you.
Well, maybe because we're not really
hold
looking
on.
at that.
That's a very strong. That's a very strong.
Because I've researched that one in particular. I promise you won't find much.
So, have you looked for?
I have that particular species, the monarch butterfly. Yes,
this was actually really, really simple. Of the 220,000 species of Lepidoptera, about 45,000 species are butterflies, which probably evolved from moths.
Okay.
That was literally the first thing that came up when
a moth, okay, a butterfly, okay. You're talking about the same process. You're talking about the process of metamorphosis. Okay?
Well,
that's the precursor to metamorphosis.
And I'm not a scientist here. Mr. Parker, Leo, and Immutable can answer you scientifically, but what I can do is answer you with common sense. I would say that humans tend to be looking for the origins of humanity and not the origins of butterflies. So we probably spend a lot more time on humanity as opposed to looking for the source of the butterfly.
Yeah, we have an entire
but go ahead,
dedicated to that.
And then real quick, Mr. Parker had his hand up. Let's get him in. And again, to everybody that's here, somebody new is here that I haven't seen before.
Well, that's Gary. He is a Christian, but he is a decent Christian. We had a really great conversation not too long ago about indoctrination and whether it be in child abuse. I really enjoyed it. Welcome back, Gary.
And Gary, I don't know if you were around. Gary and Quentin both. I don't know if you've been around the last few weeks, but we've instituted a new thing here. If you want to get in on the conversation, you need to go to the internal private chat and either type the word hand or put a hand emoji up, and then I'll know what order to bring you in on. And we're also trying something new because you're allowed to bring any topic you want. So when you put your hand up, put a little note next to it, indicating whether you want in on the current topic or whether you're going to bring something new up. And go ahead, Mr. Parker.
Well, we were still having the conversation on butterflies, but
yeah, it's fine, mutable. You guys can continue on.
Yeah, so you're asking about the precursor to metamorphosis as a process.
The reason I asked was not just to be like, because somebody that's
I understand that.
Assuming that I'm just jumping around. I'm not trying to jump around and do a gotcha. The reason I asked is because that was my whole point, was that when I look at what we do have, not just in humans, in animals, even in humans, there's like Charles Darwin himself said, we should find these, through gradualism, you know what I mean? Point mutation.
Yeah.
We should see a slow, progression of these animals changing. So you ought to be able to just basically go back to the fossils. Granted, albeit there's fossils are hard to find, but you can go back to the Cambrian explosion and they just all of a sudden all the major files appear.
Real quick before Emil goes, I want to. Okay, so you keep saying C, and first of all, we've come light years ahead of what Charles Darwin first theorized. The other thing is when you use the word C, it doesn't necessarily conflate to some type of visual verification. C means we would see through different means of examining, the fossils or the creatures or whatever. I mean,
it would be akin to bringing into light a new fact or having a new piece of evidence which indicates something in terms of the hypothesis being put forward.
Well, I guess I would just say that when I look at the fossil record, I see overwhelming evidence of extinction and stasis. Would that be fair?
So, no, I can agree that a lot of extinction has occurred within the course of the Earth's history, but I don't.
Stasis a lot. Would you not agree? You see a lot of stasis
in certain periods, but you also see certain periods in the fossil record where there are quite literally bursts of change that are occurring.
Burst of change, such as
the Cambrian explosion. I mean,
but see, that's a problem because the Cambrian explosion, they found spores. Okay, first they said that you wouldn't expect to find anything because everything's soft. They have found spores underneath there that have been preserved.
You don't even have to go back that far, though. You can just look at Africa 20, 30, 40,000 years ago and see vast changes in what was going on.
But to answer your question, right? So, I mean, this is kind of like the same thing the creationists bring up about jellyfish. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't expect spores to always fossilize. However, there are... Hold on.
It's Wednesday, right?
Yeah. I was just addressing that because a lot of times when the creationists will point out that the Cambrian explosion, that is, I don't know if you want to admit it, but that is kind of a little bit of an issue. I don't know if you want to call it a problem, but it is kind of.
Well, I think there's definitely issues. I'm very glad that Matt Powell put out a video today that made me study this very topic right now. So I know a little bit. Go ahead, Immutable.
I have to check on something real quick, but
so look at Steve. If you really want to look objectively, you look at Stephen Myers has a very good video.
Yeah, I'm familiar with who Stephen Myers is, and I've listened to some of his work, and I'm not overly impressed with it. But that's just me.
You may not be over impressed with his work, but he is a scholarly individual that has done his work. And as far as the Cambrian explosion, he presents a very serious problem with it, and shows
what is that problem? I don't think I was here to hear that.
I'm sorry.
What was the problem that was brought up about the Cambrian explosion?
You have all the major phylogy and just showing up and appearing abruptly. Bam, there they are.
Okay, we have a pretty good explanation for that.
I know the explanation was that fossils, they don't fossilize because they're soft. They're so soft or whatever. But then you go lower, and if you look in his video, they've got spores that they found fossilized. Like, you know what I mean? That they should. You can't get anything softer than that. How did they get fossilized? But the things above them, precursors to the Cambrian explosion, didn't get fossilized.
Chris, can I ask you a question? Sorry.
Hold on. Just remember, everybody, put your hand up in the private chat.
But I'm not a scientist.
No, the private chat. There's an internal private chat. Just write the word hand or put a hand emoji in there. Right now, the order is Mr. Parker, or Immutable Destiny, Leo Phileas, and now Gary. But so let Immutable and Chris finish up, and then we'll get Mr. Parker in. Go ahead.
Right. So just a precursor question before I handle this. Do you know what Stephen Myers' degree is? And
okay, see, I'm not going to go there because
I'm genuinely asking. Hold on. I'm genuinely asking because you're referencing a field that he does have like some lenience to speak on, but I'm asking, like, do you particularly know what his training is in?
Right? It's philosophy, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so you're referencing a person whose major is philosophy when, in fact, we're talking about issues.
He's also got another degree. He's got 2 degrees. Let me look at it real quick. Go ahead. What are you talking?
I mean, I believe his degree is in biology, which is fine.
He's got 2. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what it is in biology. That's why I didn't want to mention his science degree. But
well, sure. I mean, I can accept the umbrella term of it being biology, and that's fine. Although my point in bringing this up is that he isn't a paleontologist, nor is he a paleogenomicist.
Yeah, he's got a BS degree in science.
Okay,
And,
cool. That's nice. I have a BA in
physics and
biochemistry.
earth science.
Great.
Okay, but see, I mean, it doesn't.
BA in
That's what I hate. Okay, that's one thing I do not like is if somebody does not need letters behind their name. If somebody's got a point to address, it's a point. You know what I mean?
No, but my point is right. When we were talking about the origin of Lepidoptera, so the origin of butterflies, and in terms of like their morphogenesis.
Yeah, if you push it back to moss, and I'm just going to push it. Just okay. We
right,
got a problem.
Right, but the end process of that was you raising Stephen Meyer as a source in which to try and go against what's currently understood about the Cambrian explosion and the appearance of certain terrestrial phyla. And my point is that, right, from what I understand of Stephen Meyer, even being a science-educated person, which I myself am, right, I would encourage all people, and this is even with people that accept the theory, not just people that don't, pay attention to what's being claimed and look up research articles on the Cambrian explosion.
I would agree.
Yeah, we had the same problem within the theory of ancient astronauts. So we have a lot of people with degrees talking about a thing that their degree is not in, and yet they're presenting themselves as scientists, so people take them at their word. And then a lot of people believe in ancient astronauts.
A lot of creationists do it. I'll give you that 100%. But I will put my name on Stephen Myers and his work. That it's solid. It's solid. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the thing is, right? I hope I'm not getting the impression of just like fuck Stephen Meyer.
Yeah,
I
got
think
you.
Stephen Meyer probably does decent scientific work. I'm willing to grant that. Although, I would say that, why go to a mechanic if you're trying to fight cancer, right?
For a second, my phone's
and just real quick, so like Gary makes a good point. The Pride Chase says one does not need a degree in a subject to be educated in the topic.
No, you don't. And the thing is, right, the way you learn about topics is by looking up, contacting professionals if need be, but also looking up research articles, which are a form of quaternary literature that is meant to be read by lay people to try and understand these scientific concepts.
And let's move on to Mr. Parker here. And I know Leo and Gary want to get in, and so go ahead, Mr. Parker.
The whole discussion about moss and the history of Cambrian. I don't know that much of paleontology and that, but I remember when I had a debate with Standing for Truth, I think a year or two ago, and I brought up a really good point about this is a little bit sidetracked from evolution and ancestry, but more related to Noah's flood and whatnot. But it's about this man who was found frozen in Austria, the Austrian Alps, was found to be dated 5,000 years ago. And this would be before Noah's flood. And what they would actually discover is that he actually had children around, like people with his genetic markers around in that area. And I brought this up to Standing for Truth like 2 years ago in a debate, and I have not seen any material covered on that. But that's me giving my peace of mind about Noah's flood and Standing for Truth. And I think Leo will probably give a more related to topic.
Well, and the thing is, that's something I was kind of confused about. That Chris, and maybe I misinterpreted what Chris was saying, but why is it that you find it so outlandish that butterflies could have developed from moths?
I don't find it outlandish that. I find it outlandish the process of metamorphosis could even be involved in the first place. Period.
Well, I do want to give Chris some credit, and we'll let other people jump in. Chris, you are in the lion's den, my man, and you are speaking to people that know their shit. You are holding your own. Like I would have never guessed that we would have had this conversation tonight. So I want to give you some props, man.
I've been on this since I've known Nephilim Free since he started his channel. So I've been around the block a while. So I didn't just come. I ain't a Johnny come lately.
So go ahead, Leo Phileas, jump in, and then Gary's after you. Go ahead, Leo.
I have here from Nature Journal, which I think we all can agree is a very reputable scientific journal, scientific publication. I just put it there in the private chat we have, and they'd say that it's likely there's evidence that supports it, but there's some other evidence that says this might not be the case, that an increase in oxygen could have given rise to the Cambrian explosion. It's also been said that something along the lines of animals becoming predatory could have led to that as well. So we do have working models for how the Cambrian
yeah.
explosion could have occurred.
I'm not
And
saying
this
you
goes
maybe
back
don't.
to that. Just because we can't explain it doesn't mean therefore magic. So
right, but I'm not. Yeah, well, I'm not using the God of the gaps, and you can't use nature of the gaps. So we'll call
there's
that
no
even
such
on
thing
that.
as nature of the gaps. And
Well, let's
also
not
from
go there.
Scientific
I
American,
love that term, though.
all of a sudden,
I love that term. I do. I love that.
You know
nature
what?
of the gaps term.
I branded one on that knock. It's called not the big G, nature, naturalism of the gaps, not the big G. That's my trademark.
I want to. I did have sock account go at somebody about that for a moment. And yeah, it's just not a thing. But I do love the term.
I think it might have been Sky Out.
Yeah, it might have been Sky Out or CJ. CJ, it might have been CJ.
And I want to get Gary.
Well, I mean, it is a thing. It is a thing in the. And I'll start. I'll be quiet, John. It is a thing in the fact that, like, if you use it to explain something that, like, you can't. If you just say, "Well, I don't know how it happened, but it had to have happened because naturalism's true," then that's naturalism of the gaps.
Okay, but here's the thing, Chris, you're familiar with induction, right?
Yeah, induction, deduction. Yeah.
Well, induction.
Excluded middle.
Here's the thing: we've never seen an explanation for any observation that wasn't a natural explanation. So when you come to something that you can't explain, you're well within your right. You're well within logic to assume that the explanation you eventually find will be a natural one.
I mean, if you want to go that route, yeah, you can do that. But I'm
Well, I
just
mean,
saying,
that's
like,
right. I mean, I got to tell you, let me finish. Okay,
go ahead.
Yes, you can go that route because of induction. I mean, if not for induction, we would all still be in caves using stone tools. So yes, you can go that route. I mean, there's no other route to go when you don't have an explanation for something.
Well, if you go back to origin of life and something looks like it's intelligently designed, then you could induce that it's intelligently designed.
The appearance of design does not equal design.
Can I finish what I was going on?
Yeah, real quick, and then I want to get to Gary. Go ahead.
Oh, I also posted an article from Scientific American on insect metamorphosis, and I just wanted to read this part. If I can figure out where the hell I'm at. Between 280 million and 300 million years ago, however, some insects began to mature a little differently. They hatched in forms that neither looked nor behaved like their adult versions. This shift proved remarkably beneficial. Young and old insects were no longer competing for the same resources. So this is sort of like a broken metamorphosis that then eventually evolved. And
like the juvenile. Yeah.
Hold on here, I'm not finished.
This is the same paper. We
don't have a jump from A to Z. We also have all these other little steps in between. There was another point that I wanted to bring up that no, you don't have to have a degree in something to know what you're talking about, but you certainly have to have a degree in something to be an authority on the subject. And if you go to a person that doesn't have a degree relevant to a topic that is being discussed, that is by textbook definition the argumentum ad verecundium, or the argument from authority, which is fallacious. I also wanted to touch on naturalism of the gaps.
Did you use the Latin?
Yes, I always refer to them. Just the way I am. There is no such thing as naturalism of the gaps. We have only ever explained anything that has ever been explained in the history of explanations using the natural. And as John pointed out, therefore, it is the absolute most reasonable assumption, I would say presumption, that anything we haven't explained will be explained through the natural, because that's the only thing that has ever given us accurate and verifiable explanations of anything. There is no fucking thing as naturalism of the gaps.
Yeah,
Stop saying it. It doesn't exist. And I've just explained thoroughly why it's not a real thing.
And you have things that are unexplained.
Hold on, Leo, you're going down that road like from a few weeks ago. Calm yourself down. You're backed up by by truth, so you don't have to get that upset. Okay. And here's the thing: I'm willing to grant that premise because you're right. It's not a thing, but it's something that it's kind of an apologetic that some folks have come up with in response to God of the Gaps.
It seems to be new.
They're taking their own faults that we can't explain this, but we want to explain it through magic and projecting it onto us.
Yeah, they're turning. It is an attempt to turn around the God of the Gaps argument against the people using it. It is.
And so, look, I want to get to Gary. He's been waiting so patiently. And again, just a reminder, is not.
Well, we say, but it could. It could Leo. Aliens could have done it. Okay.
Yeah, but that's never been an
That's
explanation.
intelligent. That's intelligent. That's intelligent.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah. Listen to John, the moderator, please.
Okay, we're going to let Gary in. And just a reminder to everybody, Gary's another Christian. He did mention, I mentioned the one thing he said about, being, knowing a subject doesn't necessarily, have to come from having a degree in it. And after that, he had said that, which I found very interesting as a Christian, he says, however, I am skeptical of anyone who pushes intelligent design. But at any rate, I'm not sure if that's what Gary wanted to talk about, but the mic is yours, Gary.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to Chris. Chris, is intelligent design or creationism, is it a salvation issue for you? If you don't mind me asking.
Is it a salvation issue? I'm not gonna judge. I'm not God. I mean, so I don't judge salvation issues.
No, I'm asking for God. I'm asking for you. Is it a salvation issue for you?
I judge in the fact that I judge. You know what I mean? Like if something's evil or wrong or something, and it's in the Bible, I'll point it out. I don't judge in the fact of condemnation. That's not my role. That's the Lord's only role. So what are you asking again?
Is it a salvation issue? So is the fact that creation /
if somebody's a theistic evolutionist, can they be saved? Sure.
Okay,
well,
so it's
are they
not
Christian? Do they inherit the kingdom of God? If they
Hold on. This is Gary.
If they're saved, by definition, they would be. If you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, okay, and you believe that He saved you of your sins, He died on the cross, was resurrected. Yeah, then whether you believe in evolution, I mean, it's immaterial.
Okay, so it's not a salvation issue. Okay, no. That's fine. Then that means that we're going to be higher up on what I'm about to say than if I weren't. Okay, so the thing is, my problem with ID or creationism is that it's not biblical. It comes from the 1800s. It comes from a person you might have heard of called Ellen G. White. Now, what she did is she had a dream that God told her that literally Genesis was supposed to be taken literally. That is where this whole thing comes from.
That's Seventh-day Adventist, and that's not my denomination. I would announce that. I also, somebody in the chat said, if you never believed in hellfire, I believe in annihilation. I've got 100 scriptures to back it up. Eternal torture pit doctrine is false. And
I actually I find annihilationism to be refreshing.
It's not only refreshing, but I can thoroughly back it up. And Neff's got a great video from 10 years ago, and we've actually had some recent videos on this. We back it up scripturally very well, so it's not just something.
Real quick, sorry to cut you off. Real quick, just to cut in. Thank you, Geo Sam, for your $5 tip. My best to you and yours, and for your quick recovery. Thank you, my man. Always a great friend, and I appreciate all the support. So yeah, please continue. I didn't mean to.
Ron, I need to interject real quick too. I don't know if you've been around as of late, Richard, but we instituted a thing where if you want to get in on the discussion, put your hand up in the internal private chat. Either write the word hand or put a hand emoji up, and then that way I know who to go to next. But go ahead, Gary. Finish up with Chris there.
Okay, so the thing is that as it's not then it's a scientific issue. So as such, creation / ID is non-scientific. Now, this is not based upon. There are people who are Christians who are against ID / creationism. I would point to one of the most famous one being Ken Miller. Now, you've heard of him. He was the person who was against Michael Behe and did the whole trial.
Irreducible complexity.
Yeah. Actually, there's a book of his that I would recommend called Finding Darwin's God, which is a brilliant book. Which I
have some fallacies in that, but go ahead. Yeah,
I don't think there's fallacies in it, but because again, what fallacy? Again, what kind of fallacies are in that book?
Well, I'm not necessarily. I haven't read that book. I'm just saying he has some fallacies that he uses as examples.
So how can you criticize a book you never read?
I mean, excuse me, irreducible complexity.
How can you criticize a book you never read?
I didn't criticize his book. I'm just saying. I misspoke if you thought I said that. I wasn't saying
you just said he had some fallacies in that.
No, not in his book. I'm sorry. I'm just saying he uses some fallacious arguments. That's what I meant to say. I apologize.
Like what, for example?
Well, the mousetrap. You know what I mean? He uses the mousetrap. You know what I mean? To prove that anything can be you can get like irreducible complexity can be defeated by like just simply saying that you can just take away one part and use it for something else. You've got to be able to prove that. So if you go stepwise up from, let's say, your basic chemicals, amino acids that come together to make RNA. If you're going with the RNA world, then you'd have to back that up. You can't just simply just throw out things and say, well, yeah, you can pop this off and use it for this and that. You'd have to actually show where you could use it for things. You know what I mean? Rather than just postulating it.
But that's what Ken Miller was doing in that particular poem. He was defeating a particular argument. I think it's done by B here, maybe another ID proponent, where he says that
The
you can't
flagellum?
have. No, he was talking about an argument that you can't have irreducible complexity of a mousetrap. How he proved that you can. You can take away parts and you can still have it function. He was pointing out.
But it's lost. But I mean, not really though. You know what I mean? You could take it away and say, like he said, you can use it for a paperweight. But I mean, like when you're talking about evolution and going up, you know what I mean? That's he didn't use any real life example and show it. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by going up? What do you mean by going? Yeah, mutable. You're next. What do you mean by going up though, Chris? I don't understand that.
Evolution is upwards. You know what I mean? If let's say a fish loses its eyes, it goes into a cave and loses its eyes. That's down. That's
mutation does not entail up.
Oh, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to. I mean, you can have mutations, like I just said, from the cave fish that goes and loses its eyes. You've lost information. Just saying with dogs, once you keep breeding down, you get down to, let's say, a Chihuahua, you're not going to be able to just turn around and breed right back to a wolf because you're losing information. So that's a poor way to, you know, it's a poor example of evolution.
If I may,
and then Leo's, or I'm sorry, Richard's after you. Go ahead, Immutable.
Yeah. So if I may, you brought up earlier the example of Kit Miller bringing up the example of the mousetrap, right?
Right. Yeah, that's one example. Yeah.
Right. So you're familiar, like, with why he brought that up, correct? Like the reason why that was used as an example.
I believe it was using objection to the flagellum. Am I correct?
It was. That might be correct. I need to look back into like what particularly he was objecting to, but it was used as an objection towards Michael Behe's particular form of what he considers intelligent design.
Well, irreducible complexity, I would say.
Yeah, that comes part and parcel with it. But so Behe defines irreducible complexity in part by the protein. So a protein like that help in terms of like the bacterial flagellum and its function, right? Behe excludes by definition that subsequent versions of that protein encoded in genomes of other species, or even in human species at one point in time, could have served a different function. That is something that the Kitzmiller-Dover trial, he said publicly, and also that was known before that point. And the reason that the example of this mousetrap was brought up was that you can't have a more basal form of a mousetrap without it being fully a mousetrap. As long as you're comfortable saying that the function of this thing changes or can change over time. And for people that have studied like any level of proteomics or protein biochemistry, we know that proteins do change over time. We have significant evidence that there are proteins that are polymorphic, so that proteins that play multiple roles in cells, but also we know of various proteins that over the course of time have acquired mutations that before such a point in time they had one function, but that function has since changed. So the reason that Behe was bringing up the example of not Behe, but the reason that Kitzmiller was bringing up the example of the mousetrap wasn't as a fallacious reasoning. It was to counter the objection that Behe was trying to classify as irreducible complexity. Right. So that reasoning he was using isn't fallacious. That is a direct challenge and a direct counterexample towards Behe's version and notion of irreducible complexity as he defines it.
Well, okay, maybe not fallacious in the fact the way he used the argument, but when you use it as a tie clip, I mean that's just
in what way is it fallacious?
I just said that I would grant you that in that way it's not fallacious, but I'm saying, like, let's say, like he's saying, you can use it as a tie clip. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You've got to show, okay, when he goes to the flagellum, because that's what he was objecting to. You know what I mean?
Right.
The apparatus of it. Go ahead.
Right. And so in the trial, right, there were several examples that were brought up. One of which was the issue of the bacterial flagellum, but the also was the evolution of the immune system. And in each scenario, there were several sources brought up, be it textbooks at that time, so immunological textbooks that bring up the evolution of the immune system, and also quite a few, like 50 or stacks of scientific papers that demonstrate the evolution of the immune system. And the same was brought forth for the evolution of the bacteria flagella. Right? So it wasn't just conjecture on Kitzmiller's part that these things have been studied and are understood. We have the genomic evidence, and we do understand, based on structural prediction models for proteins, what those functions of those proteins were, what the mutations were that caused them to change, and we can already identify the function that the new proteins have, and we have a relatively complete model of how these things came into being.
Well, and real quick, let me step in and let me get Richard in. He has his hand up next, and he's been patiently waiting since arriving. So go ahead, Richard.
I don't know about the patient part. Peace and respect to you all. There's a lot of things in this that are just killing me. I think the biggest problem with the intelligent design trial by Jones, where Kitzmiller versus Dover and Kent Miller refutes Behe using the type 3 secretor in comparison to the flagellar motor. Now he wasn't saying that the type 3 secretor is a reduced or predecessory model of the flagellar motor. However, people have been saying that ever since. And I think that Miller should have been more clear in his statement. But anyway, if I could ask Immutable, how many millions of years do you think there should have been in the present model between, say, the general term dinosaur and human beings? And how long do you think it should be between the Cambrian explosion and placental live birth? Can you give me approximate dates on those?
I'd have to look it up. I'm not trained as a taxonomist or paleontological.
Yeah.
I believe the Cambrian explosion, let me look it up so I don't make an ass of myself. Cambrian explosion, heard about.
185.
I think this is kind of off the cuff here. Let me see.
Well, let's say dinosaurs were something around 60 million years ago, just for a rough number, okay?
Yeah.
And let's say human beings have been around for about 3, if that's fair.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
300,000
years, hasn't it been for humans?
So John, in this case, he's actually correct. The ancestors of humans, more ancient human lineages, date back to about 8 to 3 million years ago. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Almost a billion.
Depending on
what's the 200,000?
Modern Homo sapiens, I think, is
modern
years
sapiens
old.
are 1,000 years old or so.
Okay.
right. So let's just split the difference. We'll say 5 million. So 60 minus 5 is 55 million. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. So how long should there be between the Cambrian explosion and placental live birth?
That's extremely hard to predict, and part of that
It'd be
is
about 200 million years to 250 million years.
So that's a bigger number than 55 million.
Sure.
Like a considerably bigger number.
Sure.
Do you agree with Richard Dawkins' statement? You could disprove evolution by finding a bunny rabbit in with the dinosaurs. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's ridiculous. You could never find now bunny rabbits are older than human beings, right?
Sure. I don't know when exactly they began to appear, but yeah, they're older, I believe, in terms of their classification.
Okay, so that'd be a smaller number than 55 million.
Yeah, it would be.
From dinosaur to bunny rabbit.
Right.
But Dawkins said if we found a bunny rabbit in with the dinosaurs, that would like blow the whole thing out of the water.
Yeah, it would.
Okay, we found a placental fish that gives live birth in the Cambrian layer.
Examples of fish, you said?
A placental fish, a fish that has a placenta, gives live birth in the Cambrian layer, Queensland, Australia, in the Cambrian layer with Cambrian fossils, which should be a much bigger age. Hold on, much bigger. I want to give the name of it. It's Materpeces attenboroughi.
Can you put that in a side
Mother
chat? 'Cause
fish
I don't know
named
how to
after
spell it.
Can you put that in the live chat,
Materpeces,
please?
Mater
P-I.
Pi Pisces fish. I'm not great at spelling that Pisces fish thing.
Yeah.
Materpeces attenboroughi. I can spell attenborohi. That's Attenbourghi. And nobody blinked. Nobody blinked.
So the thing you're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, is oviparous fish versus viviparous fish. So fish that give
those terms.
So an oviparous organism
lays eggs.
Let me make sure I have it right, because oviparous, if I'm not mistaken, is an organism that gives birth by laying eggs.
Right. Okay.
So an oviparous organism is an organism that its method of reproducing essentially is by the egg-laying method, whereas whereas viviparous is an organism that's method of giving birth is by viviparous reproduction. So it gives live birth to its organism. So
right. Okay.
The organisms are housed. I'm not a person that I'll fully admit I'm not a person that's fully equipped for this kind of conversation. I would need to look more into the evolution of in this case viviparous in this case viviparous fish aren't reptiles, are they? Hold on.
So it's a placard fish.
Fish are not reptiles.
We have found several. We found several more than five different kinds.
Sorry.
We found more than 5 different kinds that gave live birth. They're in with the Cambrian fossils.
Right, but so what you would be looking for in that case is that, let's assume. So let me make the assumption, I might be asked wrong here, that oviparity evolved before viviparity. So the method of birth.
That's the theory, yeah.
Right, but so what I would need to look at is, was the fish that's found, right? Does it correspond to a layer that by a given conventional dating method corresponds to a time which we would roughly predict for the evolution of viviparous species?
As I said, Queensland, Australia is pristine in its Cambrian layer.
Yeah. I'm asking about the date of.
There's not cross contamination. They shouldn't be there.
I'm not trying to imply that. I'm trying to imply that the particular fossil you're mentioning, right?
Yes.
I would be interested in seeing what particular layer of the fossil record it's found in, and what the general accepted date of that layer happens.
Relatively sure. I just told you.
I didn't hear it
During the Cambrian, although in the Cambrian,
the Cambrian layer.
Right, there are multiple substrata within the Cambrian though. Right, the Cambrian lasted for a period of about 500 million years.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. You agreed with Richard Dawkins' statement. Then I shown you something 4 times worse.
Right.
So, the only fair thing for me to do right now is say, "Get back to me."
Well, Richard, what we're talking about, right, in this case is, in the Cambrian explosion, a lot of different things happened. And in this case, if there's a gradation of events in terms of organismal development and evolution, in this case, transition from oviparity to viviparity, then what we should be considering is substrata within the Cambrian strata, because those strata and any fossils present within those substrata are going to be what we're trying to look for to see if those organisms that are found are consistent with predictions for molecular clock dating and the such.
Right.
And real quick,
before I yield,
Leo Phillips had thrown his hand up, and I think he did some research on what you guys were talking about. and he said
Well,
he has some information he'd like to share. But so
If I could,
well,
before I yield,
yeah, really quick. Richard wanted to yield, and then before you go, Leo, I do need to jump in
all
real
right.
quick.
But
Go ahead,
before I
Richard.
yield, I just want to say, do you think there's not going to be a reasonable explanation for that?
I don't expect there to be a non-reasonable explanation. I think there's
Right.
probably a reasonable
This is
explanation for it.
huge, and they had to answer to this immediately, and they did.
Okay, and I imagine there's an explanation for it. I'm not aware of what that explanation is, but again, this conversation is something that I'm not specialized in.
No, get back to me. That's fair.
Hey, Knock,
Yeah,
can I take
I
20
yield.
Can I take 20 seconds, Knock?
no, you can't put your hand up in the.
No, I'm bouncing out. I just want to
Leo's
say,
Leo.
yeah,
He's getting ready to leave.
he's
That's
got.
why.
yeah, I'm gonna come
John,
back
yeah,
if you're
he's
still
gonna
around.
leave,
I just
John.
wanted to say I'll be praying for you and your child. I just wish the best, and I hope the best for you, buddy, and you're getting through that sickness too, okay, brother. And I will come back.
All right,
Thanks
thank
to
you
everybody
so
in the
much,
chat
Chris.
being respectful.
Yes,
Good
thank
to
you.
see all
You were
y'all,
very
Leo too.
respectful as well.
And I may try to come back if you guys are still going here in about an hour. I got to feed my grandfather. Take care.
Hey, Chris, you're good people,
All right,
man.
thank you, Chris.
so much.
You too, John. Sorry for butting in. Thank you.
No problem at all. I'm a little too heavy-handed
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, that's why you're my moderator, John. So you got that loud voice. I do want to. I too am going to bounce out of here. I am crashing pretty hard. And getting really exhausted. I want to thank everybody for being here and doing this very interesting conversation. I'm not going to go to bed immediately. I will be in the side chat for a brief moment, but I am crashing pretty hard. So I'm going to dip out of here. John is going to finish up for me. Thank you, John. And feel free to stay here and please continue to discuss this. I love these conversations. I want to thank everybody for being a part of it.
And I, take care, Knock, and we can go for about another hour. As you know, when it gets close to boomer o'clock, I myself have to go.
So yeah, I will get out of here. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, and thank you, Chad, for being here. Thank you guys for the great conversation. Gary, really nice to have you in the room again, and hopefully you'll come back. But I am gonna crash out. So y'all have
All
a
right,
good night.
Knock. And so, first of all, I want to just say that it seems as if to me, and again, I'm, Immutable said this isn't his expertise, so I'm way, way, way down the ladder from him. But to me, I kind of like get the sensation that Richard popped in here and like had a boom moment there, It kind of maybe derailed some of the things that were being said before he got here. But I find that very interesting. I need to go look into that myself online because at any rate, Leo, you're next. Go ahead, get in here. You said you had some information.
Say good night to Rage. Oh well. So when I said that it's about 150 to 200 million years ago is when the placenta developed in mammals. So the Cambrian explosion happened roughly 500 million years ago. That's a 300 million year gap. Fish are not mammals, and I do not believe that they have a placenta. I think a placenta is something only found in mammals. So I would question that we found a fish with a placenta. And I also wanted to mention there isn't a Cambrian layer. That's not a name of a layer. So I would need to see a reputable source for the information that you are providing.
And Gary is next as far as having his hand up, but Richard gets a chance to respond to what Leo just said since this was his discussion. Go ahead.
Cambrian layer is a colloquial expression that most of us accept as a reference. If you have a problem with the colloquial, I'll be more exacting next time. I know you can be quite exacting, Leo.
What would be the technical layer?
I'll look it up for you sometime.
Do you have a link for the information that you have provided to share with us?
Yes, you can just Google the words Materpeces.
I tried that. I didn't find anything.
I will find you a link as soon as we're done talking right here. If you feel like I'm giving you bad or incomplete information, you're not getting the idea. I would give a clarifying answer to your question if you have a question right now.
Nope.
Okay, there are placental fish. Lots of them. But they shouldn't be that long ago. Do sharks lay eggs? Are sharks fish?
I don't know the answer to this
Sharks
question.
are viviparious for the most part, if I
You
recall
are
right.
yes, you already know this. I'm just pointing out you already know this, Leo.
Gary, go ahead and get in here, man.
No, I was going to say, like, because for me, again, like, I always accepted that evolution happens because it's always been proven to, sorry, to be so because of different evidences about it. So, I'm just trying to get what Richard is going on. Is he trying to ask a question about like what Dawkins said? Because again, Dawkins isn't necessarily the foremost authority on the subject. I'd argue, you've got people like PZ Myers if you want somebody who's more, in a university ground of it, or something like maybe somebody who deals with genes and stuff like that. Maybe be more likely because again, Dawkins is just like his professorship is more granted to him more than it is something he's earned because he's not really a doctor. He's not like, as I say, he's not like a PZ Myers who has a doctorate in this field or something like that. So I mean, like, why is what he has to say something that you're going towards rather than somebody in the field who, I don't know, even if you want to go Bill Nye or something like that, or like somebody who has a PhD in the field that we're talking about, because I don't think Dawkins does necessarily.
Okay. Gary, no insult intended whatsoever. I'm having my brain is having a big problem with your accent. It's not your fault.
Sorry.
It's my fault. I don't adapt easily. I would appreciate if you would like summate all that you just said in something succinct and short using the biggest words possible so that I can recognize the words. And the reason I asked about Dawkins is not because I think Dawkins is the foremost expert, but people generally will agree, and he did.
Okay.
But if you'd make your point succinct and just kind of summate.
Okay. Why not go to somebody who has a PhD in this subject? Dawkins doesn't have a PhD in the subject. That's my point. Like PZ Myers or something like that. Or
would you like to make an assertion that PZ Myers makes so that I can refute it?
He talks about for a fact that we need to see one piece of evidence of the predictability of evolution not happening.
Do you think that PZ Myers would agree that between the Cambrian layer and placental live births should be about 300 million years, and between dinosaur and mankind in its simplest forms should be only about 55 million years? Do you agree that 55 is about a quarter of 300?
I'd agree with that.
Okay, so the point stands no matter who I referenced, because it stays to the theory, not the person who agrees with the theory. And I wanted to say something to you, Gary, as far as a belief in the Bible, unless you're going to claim that it was written by failed and flawed man, and there are parts of it you have to dismiss or can dismiss because of that, unless God were a very, very powerful blue-green algae, I don't see any way for God to say he made man in his image, unless you're going to say, well, he did it over time. But I think that's really appealing to something that's not in the text.
Do you want me to respond to that, or do you want Leofus to go? Because he looks like he wants to talk.
Yeah, Leo has his hand up next. If you have a short response to that, go ahead, Gary, and then we'll go to Leo.
Okay, Augustine. Go Leofus. Because I think you were telling the tires part.
I did want to point out that Richard Dawkins does have a Doctor of Philosophy degree. He also has an MA, and he is a professional evolutionary biologist. But no, he is not like the foremost authority. Also, there are some fish that have some type of something that you could consider a placenta, but generally fish do not have a placenta in the way that mammals have a placenta.
Okay,
and
well,
I believe
I didn't say
that the term is hemotrophic viviparity.
Okay, I did not claim mammal at any point. You know that, right?
I know. What I was saying is
Okay.
that you did mention placenta. Fish
Placenta
have something
yes.
you could call a placenta, but it isn't really a placenta.
Okay, would you look up what year that should, in the theory, what year that should begin?
I don't know.
And you have to look it up from something stated more than 7 years ago. Because they changed it when they found this.
Changed what?
They changed the time frames to fit what they found, but it was way out of time frame.
Yeah, I can't really comment on any of this because I have no technical literature
Okay.
to look
Well,
at
get back to
know
me.
what the professionals are saying.
I mean, I think that what's going on here is that based on what Leo just said is that there's a huge distinction between mammalian placental birth and placental birth.
Hemotrophic viviparity in fish. Yes, there is a difference. And so what was found in this fish is probably not actually a placenta in the way that we would consider it to be a placenta.
They're using that term colloquially.
Yes.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
that was
You
inaccurate.
tried to get in here a minute ago.
No, I mean, it seems like what's being conflated is we found a fish that gives live birth, so it exhibits viviparity, and it seems to be found in a layer where, like, terrestrian, like mammalian viviparity, it's predicted for like 55 million years ago, according to what Richard just said.
I didn't say mammalian.
Okay, I thought you. Okay.
I did not say mammalian, and when I was talking about placental birth, I did not say that at all.
You referenced rabbits earlier, though, right? Which are
I asked
don't
you
understand.
guys' opinions on your understanding of the theory about how long it should be between placental live birth in the Cambrian layer, and I also asked how long it should be between dinosaur and modern man.
Okay, well, if we're referring to placental live birth, that would be particular to mammals.
Yes.
No, it's
Yes.
not.
Yes,
no, it's not.
Then what other animal does it?
So
I
as a
should
means
say
of showing otherwise, can you provide an example of
Do sharks give live birth, or do sharks lay eggs, and are sharks fish?
sharks give live birth and they are aquatic mammals? Yes.
When did shark become a mammal?
I think he meant
If
animal.
I recall right, they're mammals.
Are they mammals? I actually don't know. You're going to know more than I do, Immutable.
It's a
If I'm wrong,
fish.
I'll happily say it. Let me look it up.
Look, I think that where the disconnect is, and I could be wrong.
Sharks are not mammals. Yep.
Yeah.
Sharks are fish. I'm incorrect.
Where the disconnect is I think that live birth
Does not mean placenta.
live birth does not necessarily entail placental birth.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I said specifically placental birth, not referencing mammals. There are. Get back to me, guys.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I already gave out the term hemotrophic.
Right. Yeah.
viviparity.
He already made a distinction.
Right, and my thing is that given that piece of knowledge, I would say that that's sufficient to invalidate what was just brought up.
What's sufficient to invalidate what was brought up?
Leo, go ahead and repeat what it was you had brought.
Too many
up a moment
euphemisms.
ago.
Hemotrophic viviparity. The zygotes are retained within the female and are provided nutrients by her, often through some form of placenta. So it is not literally a placenta. It is something that is similar to it.
I'm sorry,
but isn't
Leo.
it
What did they
exactly.
call it? What did they call it just now? What you read?
They called it some form of placenta.
Some form of what?
Some form of placenta.
What was that last word again?
Some form of placenta.
Placenta.
Well, it's not a placenta.
That's
it's
what I
some
said.
form of placenta. That's called nuance, and it is definitely important in evolutionary biology. That's why I keep saying some form of placenta.
Yes. All
Because
I
the
said was
nuance needs to be
placenta.
specified.
I was being a little bit general. I'll grant you that.
Okay. So you do acknowledge that this isn't a placenta in the same
But
sense.
I
that we
never
consider
said
mammal.
mammal, which is the opposite of what you're quoting.
I understand that. We're not referencing.
And I understand there's a
specifically mammals.
difference between quality and quantity of placenta. Yes, it varies.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Mr. Parker, are you still there? We haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, I'm still here. I don't know how we ended up in this situation, so I've been just eating my animal crackers and drinking milk, watching the debate too.
I did want to just chime in really quick. I have a discussion with Aaron Raw later tonight, who could, by all rights, be a professional on phylogeny. I will ask him about hemotrophic viviparity and placenta in fish, and if they're actually placenta, because he will probably know more than anybody else in this room. No offense to anybody else in this room.
Okay. In the original articles, when they found this, they called it a placental placard fish, and the link is in the private chat. And for anyone else, I'm going to put it in the comments. So the link you asked for is right there.
Sorry, page not found. Now, that doesn't mean it's not there. It could mean that there's a problem. It could be a broken link, because that happens to me all the time when I cite stuff. Oh, nope. I think I know what I did. I didn't get the last L in the HTML. So,
Hey,
yeah.
real quick, there you go, Pop. I just put the link in the chat. And sorry, I've been paying attention to the internal private chat to keep track of the discussion. But come on in, Puff.
So I do have the paper brought up. I can link it, which is called Live Birth in the Devonian Period. It was published, I believe, in May of 2008. And in the scientific article that is published, the one area that it states placental is that the location of the preserved... Huh?
I don't think anybody said anything, as far as I know.
Sorry, I might have heard something. But it states that the location of the preserved embryo close to the vertebral column suggests that it is in the uterus rather than the gut, a view supported by the presence of mineralized soft tissue forming a placental connection between embryo and mother. Furthermore, a second connection between Gogo, previously described, Australopithecus getterini, has been re-examined, and we have identified 3 small embryos in the same position posterior to something. But it's saying that there seems to be a connection which is similar to a placenta.
Yes.
So real quick, for the people that just joined us, we have a new policy that we enacted in case you weren't here for some of the earlier open streams. Put your hand up in the internal private chat if you want to get in. That way I can keep track of what order we go in. Just write the word hand or put a hand emoji in there.
Okay, I need to look up that
But
word.
welcome up. Tioga just threw her hand up, so go ahead, Tioga.
Hi, guys. Richard, what's up? I thought maybe I could explain this. So it is like what you guys are talking about. It is like a placenta. I mean, that shouldn't be up for debate.
Yep.
You know, it's an internal organ. But I don't understand, why is it weird that it evolved during that time period? Was there something that was preventing it from forming a placenta or being selected for a placenta? Because organs can evolve at any stage of time if they have the ability to do so. So I don't understand why it would be weird. It is the placenta, but why would it be weird that it showed up in the Cambrian?
And that's it, Richard. That's a question. Is that Richard?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. From what I understand, which is not perfect understanding of the theory, what we should have is gradual change over time in a large populace, adapting that species into new species that are better suited to its specific environment.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So to say egg-laying crustaceans and what we would consider relatively simple animals compared to, say, a mammal or whatever, in the Cambrian layer, and then in with that a live birth-giving placard fish.
Mm-hmm. Well, we wouldn't assume that it just showed up out of nowhere. Yeah. We would assume that it did evolve. And there are things, I mean, just because of the fact that we do not have access to all that historical cladographicall information on these animals, we have to try to figure it out, right? Like we can't just go back and just be like, oh, here's every single evolution. We assume that it did, and there are theories about why they would have, and one of them is that it makes fish more streamlined. They're able to survive better if they don't have bulky eggs carrying around inside of them. So and that's what I'm saying is that like I just don't understand that, like, I don't think it appeared out of nowhere. Does that make
I don't think it appeared out of nowhere. I think it's way out of time frame by 4 times the example that Dawkins gave. That's what I think.
What leads you to believe that it's out of place?
What do you mean? Okay,
Would you
so
explain to me? Would you explain to me the general definition of the theory of evolution?
Biodiversity as a result of changes in frequencies of alleles over time.
Yeah, and that's
over
that's fine.
time.
But Leo, put your hand
Yeah.
up. Like Puff is after Tioga, so keep.
I'm terribly sorry. That was
No,
more of
it's
a
okay.
clarification question.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
apologize.
okay.
Go ahead, Puff.
So Richard, you are familiar. You said it has to take place over a period of time, right? Change has to be slow and it has to take place over a period of time, right?
I'm familiar with Stephen Jay Gould and his team.
What do you mean?
I'll just skip to the end of the talk.
Oh no. So
yes, there are mutations that can collect within a species and not end up in a change of morphology.
Nope.
Until
not even you're in a totally different forest.
Okay, I misread
I'm not
you.
even in that woods, bro. Okay,
Sorry, I
so
thought that's- okay.
Please don't aspire anybody. Don't attach anybody else's meaning or motives to my words, please. Anyway, so you said it takes place over time, right?
That's part of the theory, yes.
Are you familiar what happens on islands?
I know some things about animals on islands. Can you be more specific?
Okay, so what happens to animals on islands when the food supply for that animal it reduces, but it doesn't go away?
According to the theory?
Yeah.
It's going to accept a new food source. It's going to change gradually over time to adopt a new food source.
No. What generally happens is as long as that food source is still available, but it may be, but it reduces, that animal is going to reduce in size. The reason being is that the ones that are going to be able to get enough sustenance, enough energy in their body to be viable reproductive mates are going to be the animals that are smaller. And then those are going to reproduce with smaller animals.
I would have answered that as you wished, but I couldn't tell what you're asking me.
Okay, so we know that happens, right? You've admitted you know that happens. Well, we know
I've admitted it's part of the theory.
Okay, well, we know in our lifetimes, definitely within your lifetime, within my lifetime, we have seen the population of animals on islands drastically change in the size and morphology of that animal, right? But it's not considered a different animal, right? Because it can still interbreed. Well, we've seen that also doesn't happen. So there's a situation with the finches, right? The finches on the Galapagos Islands, right? There is, they brought finches from other islands to a specific island, right? Those finches crossbred, right? And they actually, within the last 200 years, have formed basically they've evolved into a different species that cannot mate with their original species, and that's less than 200 years. So
okay, I want to say something real quick, Puff.
Yeah.
I know you have like a habit of using the word right. When I recognize that you're speaking, that's not necessarily me agreeing with you just because you said right.
No. I'm saying
I'm clarifying for the audience, sir. I'm only saying I heard what you said.
Okay, yeah, no. What I'm saying is that you said that it changes slowly, right? But we know that
on average, yes.
But that's not the case. It changes based on the selective pressure, right?
Yes, which usually is gradualistic. So on average, changes are slow.
Right. But if you can have fast bursts of change, right? So there's no time
Yes,
in which
that's
it takes
also
evolution
true.
to change. There's no timing for evolution, right? Okay. So then we also have the aspect on this earth that once a branch dies out, it's dead forever. Once the last member of that species dies out.
Puff, can I get a timeout?
Wait a second. Wait, let me finish what I'm saying. So we know that once that in science anyway, they admit that if the last member of a species dies out, then it can be gone, right? But it could be existent and just not be in the fossil record, right? So there's a possibility that your fish that it's not really placental, it's like a proto-placental for fishes though, because but anyway, so it could be that that fish is still alive, or it could be that that fish completely died out, and that mammals also convergently evolved to be placental animals separately.
Okay, I assume the reason you're saying could be is because you haven't read what I'm talking about. So how about
No,
if you get
because
back to me
there's
after you've read it?
No, because the reason I say could be is because I don't have conclusive DNA evidence.
And
You know what
I
I mean?
also
But
want
like,
to ask you if you're the same Puff that is Puffaluppagus that's been a fan of Skylar, and I've seen you in comments forever. Thanks for supporting Skylar. He's a great guy.
oh yes, oh yeah, and also because you're a good interlocutor, Richard. That's what I love too. Thank you, and I love the way that you interact with Skylar as well, man. Because you guys do you and him do some awesome interviews with
We have a good time.
Christians.
We're friends.
Yeah, and when you guys stream
I love
and
tearing
interview
apart Christians with Skylar. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, you do it in a different way, man, and I like that. It's kind of compassionate, and you have some understanding for him. So you bridge the gap between our two worlds, and I think that's pretty awesome, man.
Well, I was an anti-theist for 30 years, so I kind of get both positions now. I kind of understand some of it. Anyway, your overall point in having said, would you summate all that for me, because I really got lost.
So what I'm saying is that we do not necessarily evolution doesn't require a certain amount of time to happen. It doesn't require the same set of rules to happen, and it can reach the same conclusion or reach the same, basically the same solution or conclusion or whatever you want to call it, method to deal with a certain environment and thrive in separate species that never, and they converge. It's convergent evolution, right?
Okay, I think I get it. Okay, so how I'd like to respond to that is when people say something specific, I will say something specific in return. I was speaking in broad generalities. I wasn't trying to be specific. I am aware that Stephen Jay Gould had a decent argument that is supported by the genetic surveys that we've been doing since those years, and that the general definition of the word evolution, although I was using it in context correctly, doesn't apply always in all situations with all species. So I see your point, I think, but that's also not what I was saying.
Well, no, what I was saying is that that fish may.
Would you like to bring up a specific argument?
That's what I'm saying. That fish may have existed at that time. It did exist at that time, right? It was in that layer, but that does not preclude the rest of evolution from
Except if you read up on it, you'd find it is precluded, and it's there anyway. And it did not fall through a crevice in the earth.
No, it did at that time. That's what I'm saying.
There's like no soil on top of the Cambrian. It's in that same layer, in those same year span. Okay,
Richard, are you saying that the presence of this fish that gives live birth and has some form of placenta is a defeater for the theory of evolution?
I think it's a challenge. I didn't say it was a defeater.
Okay.
I think that some people have made claims that they shouldn't have made on how sure they were of the theory. And it has been more than 4 times shown that their example is just not even accurate. And everyone was extremely sure of that. And it's put out to the public as if it's a fact. These are not facts.
Leo, you had your hand up.
Yes. So I wanted to draw an analogy that I think will help play to the point that Puff was getting at for Richard. Let's assume that we're back before we discovered what dark matter was and everything like that. That serious anomaly, does that upend the entirety of general relativity?
I already conceded this. You understand that, right?
Does
Like
that,
you're making a
does that
point we already
anomaly
discussed
upend
in
the entirety of general relativity?
you understand that you're making a point we already discussed and settled,
That's
right?
fine. I still want an answer to my question. I would say no, it doesn't.
I think
the
that
whole
I'm
general
biased. I think that I'm biased, as all people are. And if you want to disprove anything that I believe, just like if I want to disprove something that you believe, it's going to take more than 1 point.
I'm not trying to disprove what you said.
There is no singular defeater for a person's belief system on any given topic. You don't believe things based on one fact, do you? Why would one fact
on that one
disprove it?
fact.
That makes no sense, Leo.
It depends on what we're
Well, no,
talking
but
about.
I think that you're misunderstanding Leo's question. He was giving an analogy to try and,
What I was
think I'm
demonstrating is
perfectly
that
understanding it, John.
There are anomalies that we may discover that's like, whoa, okay, so that it doesn't really fit in with our evolutionary model. But those anomalies don't mean that, oh, well, we got to throw the whole thing out the window. And yeah, you did concede that you're not necessarily saying that would be the case, but it does pose a challenge. I would say that to me, it just means that there are certain aspects of evolutionary theory that may need to be modified, but we don't throw away the whole thing. Just like when we were discovering dark matter, some people thought that the whole of general relativity was wrong. We now know that it's not. So it was an analogy to demonstrate
Leo,
that.
the thing is, though, and I understand what you're saying, but the thing is, Richard's made it clear more than once, though, that he's not saying throw the whole theory out. He's just saying that what he's bringing up as a problem for the theory of evolution. And what I'd say to Richard is that the problem you're bringing up is exactly why all science is provisional.
I totally agree. And I knew someone was going to say that, John. I'm glad it was you.
And I want everybody else to turn their camera off because Tioga just turned her camera on and really classed the joint up. And so all you ugly motherfuckers should turn your cameras off.
No, leave it on.
Ugly. I'm keeping
Shut up, John.
I'm just kidding. But Puff has his hand up again. Puff, you're muted, Puff.
Okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, that's what I was gonna. I mean, okay. So here's the thing, right? If we'll say an example, right? Leo is a biologist, right, or a anthropologist, I should say, and he says, crazy thing like humans, actually were, Homo sapiens were actually around, or they could have never been around, right? 300,000 years ago. Now there's proof, right, that it happened, right? But other people don't agree with him, or they didn't say that themselves, right? His words don't dispute the facts that have already been found out, right? So just like, you say that, and honestly, I do believe what you say, that a lot of Christians misrepresent or make false claims about what's in the Bible. I've heard you say this a few times. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
You're right.
And Richard, I was
And
just
outright-
joking. You can turn your camera back on, man. We don't want to deny the viewership your beard. So,
And what I took from you, and I do understand, and it changed my perspective of how I deal with Christians and stuff, is that just because some jackass like Kent Hovind makes some kind of claim, right? It doesn't mean that it doesn't make what's true in the Bible not true, or to you anyway, true in the Bible not true, right? It doesn't invalidate the Bible because Kent Hovind's a jackass and he makes all kind of fake claims.
Well, yes, obviously not. I'm not dropping my reading frame or understanding of reality based in Kent Hovind.
Right. So what I'm saying though is my big spiel is the scientists made a braggadocious jackass statement, right? He was proven wrong as a person, right? But I guarantee when they proved him wrong, he was happier than when he thought he was right. Because in science,
I don't know. I'm not willing to claim that because I can't read Richard Dawkins' mind.
Well, I say that because an honest scientist, right? A scientist that really is true to trying to find answers, right? It's one of the most
word there.
Well, I mean, it's answers. We all have a. It's okay.
No,
so
it's, when you said honesty, I'm wondering which of us is honest.
What do you mean?
Who's honest? You said honest scientist. Who's honest? Name me one person.
I mean, like intellectually honest to themselves, right? Not saying
that's what I'm talking
honest
about.
Honest to the method.
Name me one person who's honest.
Like one scientist?
Literally every
scientist
at one time or another.
Feynman.
Okay, so the
Feynman,
the scientific method
Albert Einstein.
defeats biases. Is that what you're saying?
No.
Kind of, yeah. It operates in a way to select out biases. That's part of the peer review process.
As long as you're honestly trying to do science, which is finding answers to questions, and it's not really about the answer. You don't revel in the answer. You revel in finding the next question that hasn't been answered. But if you're honest to yourself and you honestly are doing science, and yes, your thing is to do science, to be proven wrong. Actually proven wrong is a gratifying experience because now you have the real answer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the reason what Puff is saying is true is that the scientific method itself is a debunking method. You know,
if I could ask you, John,
when science,
I mean, everyone's had their
let me finish my statement, Richard, before you tear it apart. I mean, let me get like a whole sentence out, then you can go to tearing it apart. The scientific method is a debunking method, okay? Because you come up with a hypothesis and then you set about proving yourself wrong to eventually prove yourself right. I mean, so it's...
You ever read an experiment, John?
Have I ever read an experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
You have? Okay.
I have.
Would you say that I'm accurate in saying that in the description of the experiment is not only the problem, but a possible solution, the observation of the person who invented the experiment, and the result they got? Is all that in there? What's not in there that I said?
No, I don't.
Did I leave out?
You asked about
and I'm going to let Immutable take this, although the question was for me, but go ahead, Immutable.
You asked about if there's bias, which is what I heard is I thought you asked, is there bias like stated within like that you can like when you read a scientific paper that's within it? And I say no.
That's great. Can we actually break it down and address it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, first let me ask you if humans are biased.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you describe to me the main topics of the description of an experiment, please?
The description of an experiment is we formulate we formulate a hypothesis about two phenomenon and how they may be related to each other. We develop a mathematical model or use a pre-existing one to try and gauge the relationship. We establish a null hypothesis, which gives us a criteria for which that hypothesis can be proven wrong, and we gather data. And once data is given and data analysis is performed, we analyze the statistical results to see whether or not we are within our bounds to either accept or reject the null hypothesis.
Okay, so my whole thing is trying to talk to popular science using actual science, because I think that our population thinks popular science is science, and I think that's a problem. And I'd rather they knew actual science than popular science.
I agree with that.
Okay, I'd rather they did, because then they can really think about it, and they're not being just malinformed.
Well,
okay?
I would agree with you. I mean, I think since you're referring to like sensationalization, like with media,
right? Exactly. That's the part I resent. That's what I'm actually talking about here. Okay.
Yeah, I laugh when people reference Michio Kaku, who overly sensationalizes aspects of physics. Despite being a
Okay.
brilliant physicist, he does it frequently.
Where was the safe word? I need the safe word, Leo. You never made one, did
Jazz
you?
hands.
Jazz hands. Okay, I'm going to give you the jazz hands. Okay, so I believe that it's true if I'm repeating an experiment, right? Let's say I'm a high school or even lower college levels, right? And I'm just repeating an experiment. I'm not designing my own yet, right? What I will read in there is what is supposed to happen. That's part of it, right?
Yeah, you have a prediction about what would occur.
Okay, now if I get not that result, I'm going to think I did it wrong, right?
Sure, you might think that.
I mean, it would be common. I'm speaking commonalities, right?
Yeah, commonly you would think that there's something went wrong with the experiment, or you just did it wrong. Sure.
Right. I got cross contamination. I didn't get the right temperature. Whatever. Right.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever it might have been. Okay. So what I'm going to say in an appeal to an actual authority is I'm probably wrong, and I'm going to repeat it and I'm going to try to get right, and I'm try to get the right result. Okay. Do you see the inherent bias, or do you not? There is intrinsic bias when a human tells another human what to do and what to expect, and then they will try until they get that result. Is that true, or is that not true in the scientific method?
It's true within an extent, right? So, for instance, like with what you're saying, right? When we test, so for instance, if I want to test to see that some result coheres, that's supposed to cohere with the commonly accepted body of scientific knowledge. Okay, I go in my lab, I get the chemicals I need, I perform the experiment. Okay, it turns out to be not at all what I expect. Okay, well that's kind of weird. Let me check back with my lab notebook, see what the hell happened. Maybe there were some things that happened there, right? Maybe there's human error that I can account for. Mm-hmm. And try the experiment again, and it fails again. Okay, well let's go down the list again. Okay, so I rolled out for this variable. The point in which I'm saying is that to an extent, we believe that part of it is human error. And although after you repeat that experiment so many times, right, that begins to accumulate evidence that the hypothesis you're putting forth might not be correct, right? That there might be something deeper. There might be something more fundamental about this process that the mathematical theory you're using to try and describe its phenomenon no longer applies to it. Or it's a very special exception.
Or you believe that you do the experiment, right? You do the experiment, you get the result, right, that they expected, right? But
we're talking about you don't get it, right? So the conclusion of the experiments does not match observation.
Oh, well, what I was saying though is like, okay, so if it doesn't, even if it, what I was gonna say, like in the case of Thunderfoot, right? He took a common experiment, right, which is the sodium water explosion experiment, right?
Yeah.
And he questioned the explanation of what's going on, right? And he then went on to embarked on a journey to prove that that at that time explanation was not correct.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, but okay.
I got a little bit of pushback for Richard. From what I remember of high school chemistry or physics, we had to do experiments, and we were not given the results that were expected. You do an experiment, and then you turn in your results. If those results were wrong...
Wait. Did you just say wrong?
That's exactly what I said.
Wrong compared to what?
That's
why what's right.
That's why we hold on. That's why we do experiments, Richard. So we can predict things, right?
No. Hold on. Let me provoke a thought in you here. I'm just talking about a thought that I had.
Okay.
Did the teacher have the right results that you should get in these experiments that you didn't have the answer for?
Absolutely.
Is that how the teacher told you what was wrong?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so the teacher had a known accepted result that you might not reach. Is that correct?
I would qualify that with more like science.
Okay, so science had a known accepted result that you might not, and some students did reach. Is that correct?
Sure. So, okay, let me ask you.
Do you not see the inherent bias that I'm pointing out to you?
I don't see a bias.
I
there.
see.
That's because you don't want to see it. It is
No,
definitely
it's
there.
because we know that certain answers can be correct.
Hold on.
That's
Hold on a
what
second.
corroboration does. It establishes a correct
Leo,
answer.
hold on. Leo. Doubting Thomas was talking. Go ahead, Doubting.
Richard.
Again, everybody, use your hand in the private chat. Put a hand up in the private chat. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, Richard, this is kind of how it works. Okay, let's say you do an experiment in high school and the teacher says you're wrong and you get a 70% grade on that particular experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then you push back on the teacher and say, "No, I am not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I am confident in all the steps I've taken in this experiment, and these are the results. You are
Mm-hmm.
wrong. Science is wrong."
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So how are you going to determine at that point which is right and which is wrong?
Well, first, I'd like to say that according to all of you guys, the science teacher should be very excited, which is bullcrap.
Should be very excited. Very
that
excited
will not
about
happen.
If you can repeat the results that you got that were not the results you were expecting, if you can repeat that, then and you can show that it's not the result that they were looking for, and you can do it repeatedly, right?
Well, right, and here's the thing.
Effectively
And
and
here's the thing.
falsifiably.
What a teacher would first do. Okay, so you have an experiment that's been done over and over again on an established, concept in science, and then you have some high schoolers do it. And if a high schooler comes, like Doubting Thomas said, and then that student gets a 70%, but they came up with the wrong solution. Now, the reason that they would come to that conclusion of a 70% grade is because they would look at the student's methodology. They would find out where they had went awry in the steps of the experiment. And so maybe they would find that they did, 15 of the steps right and 3 of the steps were wrong. And that's where they went awry and came up with a different conclusion. Or they might do what you say. They might look at the student's methodology and go, "Holy fuck! Wait a minute. This might be something new because he did the experiment as it was supposed to be done and got this different result." I think when you're saying you're throwing this word bias out there because of the fact that all human beings have bias, and you're translating that into these scientists. These scientific teachers must have a bias because they have the answer beforehand. Go ahead.
Of course, when you have a presupposed answer, you are biased. Of course.
But it's not presupposed. That's the whole thing. It's not presupposed.
Who wrote it?
It was established through scientific experimentation. It's not.
Okay, so it was established through scientific.
Wait a minute. Presupposing. The word presupposing means you are accepting it as a truth without any evidence. That's what presupposing is.
Yes.
So presupposing.
What is?
Do you think the teacher presupposes there are wrong experiments in the science book? Of course not.
Sure. Absolutely.
They assume all of them are perfect.
No,
you guys
I
don't see
guarantee
this
you they would consolidate.
Richard.
Let me clarify. Let me just clarify real quick. Let me just. If it is true that things are fundamentally at a very, very, very small scale, at a quantum scale, but if you break it down far enough, but those things add together and make larger or even medium scale items. Is that true?
Yes.
You're equivalent.
Now, Ed, I'm not. Don't tell me what I'm doing. You know, I haven't finished the thought. Please wait for me to finish the thought before you tell me what I'm doing.
Okay.
Okay. So when these things add up, and we know that at a quantum scale there is involvement of the observer, at what point should I cut that off?
When you're no longer doing quantum mechanics.
Okay, so quantum reality
Richard,
doesn't apply to larger scales. Is that what you're saying?
In some cases, no, it does not.
Richard, what I'm saying to you is you started this out with the chemistry experiment in high school, okay?
Yes.
A chemistry experiment in high school has very little to do with quantum mechanics.
No, how do you know that?
Because they're not. Hold on. Because in high school chemistry, they are not trying to evaluate you on your understanding of quantum mechanics. They're trying to evaluate you on your understanding of chemistry. And I can guarantee you that any high school chemistry teacher has done any experiment that their student is going to do. And the results have been the same for approximately the last 200 years. And if for some reason a student came up with a better way or a different result that was indeed tested and able to be retested, if you do this experiment under these conditions in any lab anywhere in the world, you're going to come up with this result. That's how science works. It's not a bias. The students are not working toward an answer. It's not the student is not presupposing. The person that is doing the experiment in the example you gave is not presupposing. They are given an experiment. Mix this chemical with that chemical. And at what dilution does the solution
yourself
change?
Doubting.
Okay.
I get the idea.
Okay, real quick, I got to jump in here. Leo had his hand up next, and after Leo, Tioga had something to say, and then we're going to start wrapping this up. I'm a very old and ancient creature, and
you're not that old.
I need to get my rest. But
are you going to become a fossil, John?
I'm going to become a fossil right before your eyes. Absolutely.
All right.
But go ahead, Leo. You had your hand up, all caps.
Yeah, because I heard something, and I want to make sure that he's not making the claim that I hear a lot of other people make. Immutables are like, oh God, here we go, because I'm sure he knows what I'm about to talk about. When you mentioned that something about the observer affecting the experiment in quantum mechanics, what do you mean when you say observer? Do you mean a conscious observer?
I'm not familiar enough with all the experiments that have been done to negate that fully. I don't know that you are either.
Well, I'm not, but the professionals are, and they have.
Okay, I'll take your word for it for the conversation. I'd have to look into it. I don't know. I don't know because I haven't looked into that particular thing that you're asking me.
Well, we can address that at another time. Tioga, what was it you wanted to get in and say?
Hi. So Richard's right in the way that, high school science teachers can be wrong and biased. But as other people have explained, this is why we do the scientific method. And to tie it back into the placental thing, that's the reason we have that. Obviously, we don't know, and we do have biases, right? Like we do. So we developed this method to test whether or not our biases are true. We already know this. This has been said 1,000 times. Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm trying to tie it back to the
You mean that we test to make sure our biases are false. The reason I say that is because...
Yeah.
Right. The reason I say that is because statistically, right, any bias that is done within an experiment can be detected, right?
Well, I'm trying to tie it back into
like the placenta, the reason that it seems so bizarre that a fish has a placenta is because we don't know yet, you know.
We do
So what
know
we-
about. There's more than 5 that were found in that layer that are placental placard.
But what you're bringing
style.
up, the point you're bringing up is that we don't know how they evolved.
I'm speaking against popular science and encouraging people to actually study things. That's what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool. Well, most people do. So you're spot on, bro.
Okay, so when Doubting Thomas said we were not given the correct results in our science lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those who got a different result than the expected result were told they were wrong by the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
who referred to a standard that is widely accepted and has generally been proven as much as we can prove something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That is the very description of inherent bias.
Well, see, here's the thing.
No,
the
it
reason, well, here's the thing is that the standards that made that textbook that the teacher is from the product of academia in grad school and to doctorate levels is because they are able to handle the amount of information it takes to write those textbooks and conduct those experiments accurately. So it is biased. I mean, in the 50s, do you think they were teaching science accurately? I don't think so.
I think we're improving all the time, and that's
All
great.
right,
We should
that's
be.
going to have to be the final word from Tioga. We're going to go around the room, let everybody give their final word.
That's
and
it.
Show, and show whatever they have to show. You know, if you have YouTube channels or websites or whatever. We'll start with Puff.
Oh, I don't have anybody to shield. I've just been sitting here fucking looking shit up. So just if you're watching, give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down. But if you give it a thumbs down, you have to leave a comment in the comment section when this post afterward explaining why you gave it a thumbs down.
You know the algorithm doesn't care, right, Puff?
We need to know.
We care. We want to know.
care.
I mean, but I
We the
imagine
people need to get an answer here.
I think that if anybody gave it a thumbs down, their response would be that they did it because of reasons. But
If you give a thumbs down, you're on our watch list. Just know that.
I just thumbs down this video.
Give us your final word and tell us anything we need to know about you. I think you have like a project coming up with.
Oh yeah. So me and Speed of Sound and Gravity recently had an interview with Demeter, who's an Origin of Life researcher, and Aaron Raw, and people know who that is already. Need not explain it. Me and Speed will be working on programming a very basic model for what Demeter describes in this paper, which is a hypothesis concerning the possible explanation for the association between amino acids in the genetic code. I generally affiliate myself with Speed of Sound of Gravity by appearing on his YouTube channel and countering creationist sources and, quite frankly, their idiocy. What I would recommend people do, I mean, the last conversation we had this time was fantastic, because the process of science, right? This idea of students going in and showing the professor, no, well, we have like 50 students that have all gotten the same result. You know, we all use the same methodology, and this appears to be the result, right? If once that is reviewed, that would show might be qualifiable for peer review and actual publishing, because that type of breakthrough and that type of result is something that, because it does not obey with the status quo, it tells us something further about reality. It tells us something that the mechanism we tried to assign to try and explain this originally artificially seems correct, but fundamentally has some problem. There appears to be some nuance to this issue that has not yet been resolved. But yeah, I think the stream, like my message in the stream for anybody would be, number one, if you're interested in science, pick up a textbook somewhere. There are plenty of free sources where you can find e-textbooks or free textbooks that are very easy to read if you don't understand it. There are forums where you can ask those questions. But more importantly, if you want to know about a topic like Cambrian explosion and stuff like that, there are scientific papers which fall under the category of review articles, which are literature that reviews the progress and advancement of thought in the scientific community over over some specified time interval. Typically, they get published within a year or two because there's a lot of people working on this and trying to figure out what are the gaps in our knowledge, what does the data tell us, and if there are potential inconsistencies or events that we don't know within the geologic strata, what are methods we can use that help us probe even further into the past? Or
okay, Socket Junior, are you almost done?
I suppose, John, if you want me to be.
Yeah, well, I want to move on. I got to get out of here. Richard, your final thoughts, and let us know about your channel and anything else you want us to know.
This isn't even the beginning of a conversation, but I have really enjoyed it, and thanks for letting me on the channel, John and Knock.
We can come back to this in the near future. No problem at all. We can even do a stream that isn't on open mic night where you guys can just talk about the whole thing amongst yourselves. But go ahead.
I have some questions for Immutable based on his scientific background, which I don't have, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, so check out my little YouTube channel that's nearly invisible and almost has no subscribers. That's Demolish _Doctrine, Richard Madsen, as you see written here at the bottom of this little tiny screen I got. And come argue with me. I really enjoy intelligent people with good argumentation. And should you have some way that you can prove something that I believe wrong, I'd really appreciate it if you did that.
All right, very good. Tioga.
Hi, I have an art channel. You can hit me up, whatever. It's Trawtechum on Twitter. And I was trying to find the free academic resource databases, and I was going to spam it in chat, but I can't find it, so someone should look that up.
NCBI.
Yeah, yeah.
NCBI is a great source.
NCBI and PubMed are very good scientific sources that typically offer quite a large variety of free scientific resources, and if it's not available currently, typically in the next 2 to 5 years, it will become open access and publicly available through one of those two domains.
Or you can email the people that wrote the paper as well.
And Tioga,
that is also a good way of.
You had a YouTube channel. What was the name of that channel again?
On Twitter, I'm Trawtechum, TRA.TEKIM. It's Mike T Art backwards. But
okay. But you don't have a YouTube channel, or you do?
I do have a YouTube channel, but I don't post anything on it. So.
Okay.
Sorry.
Mr. Parker.
Yo. My channel, I have like 3 videos. I'm gonna have Leo on tomorrow night at like 9:30 or 10, and I'm gonna basically pick his brain on politics, and we're gonna just discuss politics. And what was it, like 2 weeks ago I did the same thing with Knock about Trump and fascism. And you can find me on Twitter at the Mr. Parker, like spell out the word Mr. Yeah, I'm more of a political channel. I guess I'm swaying more than science, but I love having science discussions like these that I've been partially listening to. But I'm mostly watching the vice presidential debate. But you guys have a very interesting topic about popular science and like actual science and how people should be introduced to that. And my gist of it, what I believe and whatnot, is that we should be striving our best as people who have degrees in science and don't, and are advocates for science and really enthusiastic about it, should try our best to be as accurate as we can of the science. And if I'm trying to explain quantum mechanics to a 5-year-old, I'm not going to use like leptons, protons. I'm just going to be like light, this ball. I'm going to use really simplistic terminology for a 5-year-old. But if you're like 20 years old, I'm going to give you the resources to actually understand what I'm talking about. That's it.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that. I just want to say real quick, like one of the things Will was calling Leo out for in the conversation he reviewed was that Leo was saying all this stuff and he wasn't breaking it down in simple terms for people that don't understand. And I corrected Will when we reviewed his stream in that, when Leo was talking, like when he talked about what a muon was, he referred to it as like the
heavier cousin of an electron.
Heavier cousin of an electron. And then when he was trying to explain to Tangelo what a vector was, he did a very simplistic, demonstration of it. So yeah, absolutely. You gotta know who it is you're talking to, and you have to make them understand. And then, like Mr. Parker said, then the person that you talk to and try to make them understand, they need to go do their own research and their own reading and come to conclusions for themselves. But go ahead, Leo, your final words.
So as for science, what Mr. Parker said, I'd like to clarify what I would do it. There are people that age in some respects obviously does matter, in other respects it doesn't. There are certain topics in science like quantum mechanics I won't even bother to explain to somebody because they like a 7-year-old simply does not have the background necessary to understand even the fundamentals of it. They just don't. There's too much algebra and then calculus and then classical mechanics, gravitational mechanics, electromagnetism, all this stuff that they need to learn before they're even going to come close to understanding it. There might be certain little topics you might be able to parse out for somebody that age, but like as John has already stated, it all comes down to understanding your audience, understanding their level of education, and being capable of explaining something in a way palatable for them. I do have a YouTube channel. I have a phone. I can finally verify my channel. I get service Friday and will verify my channel. I don't know when I'm going to get content up because I'm waiting for a buddy of mine who attends SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. He's got people that work in visual effects that are going to make me an intro and an outro for my channel. I don't want to put a channel up without that. I will have content out before the end of October. That is a given. I will be doing a lot of science education, science communication, and refuting pseudoscientific bullshit like creationism, like intelligent design, what have you. The channel is Leophilius, spelled as you see it on the screen. You probably will not find it with a YouTube search. I have a Twitter that is @Leophilius, again spelled as you see on the screen. My YouTube channel is linked to my Twitter, on my Twitter, so feel free to give me a subscribe and to follow me on Twitter if you like the content. Do not subscribe if you don't like Amelia Clark, and don't talk to me if you don't like Amelia Clark. And as always, stan Amelia Clark.
Okay. Those are always Leo's final words. I love it. So let me say thank you to everybody that gave a tip to the channel and gave their well wishes for Knock. I know he greatly appreciates that and has said so himself. And please be here at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday, where we will be playing a pre-recorded interview with ex-Muslim Harris Sultan. And he has a YouTube channel of the same name, Harris Sultan. And thank everybody for coming. It was such an interesting conversation. And as always goes, with some of the people that showed up here tonight, I've often said, and it holds true tonight, I got a lot of reading to do. So to go back and watch this and try and understand the stuff I didn't understand. And this has once again been our open room every Wednesday night. We're going to have it at 7:00. Please come around. My special thanks to all the Christians that showed up tonight. We don't want this to be a echo chamber. We want people with all opinions and all ideas to come and talk to us. And again, this has been the Horse and Bear Open Live Room, and please come back and join us next Wednesday.
#John